you happy or are you stressed, worried, a little anxious? Turns out since the 90s, the data says we are more unhappy every single year. But what if everything that we've been told about our mind and happiness is wrong? What if instead there is a formula for being just peacefully happy? World renowned happiness expert, Harvard professor, and best selling author with Oprah Winfrey, Arthur Brooks, shares exactly that on our episode. If you want to find happiness, real love, and if you want to be able to spot a narcissist a mile away, today we give you the happiness formula. Is it important to be happy?
It is. Everybody wants to be happier than they currently are. Now, one of the mistakes that they make is thinking that they can be somehow cosmically happy, which isn't true, at least this side of heaven. And part of the reason for it is that we're not built to be perfectly happy. We have negative emotions because they keep us safe and alive. Fear, anger, disgust, and sadness. These are defense mechanisms. They're signals that something is not right around us, which is why we have negative emotions. And so they're very, very important for our protection. And we need negative experiences because that's how we learn and grow. I mean, you write about this a lot. I mean, the experiences that people actually have in their daily lives is how they learn. And so if you were perfectly happy, you'd be in danger and not learning. And that's a bad situation to be in. So perfect happiness is not the goal, but happierness really is the goal, is getting happier by learning how the science works, learning how to manage yourself, changing your habits, sharing ideas with others. And that's really what my work's all about, is happierness.
Is there any correlation between being happier and healthier?
There is some, and it depends what we mean by healthier. For sure, mentally healthier, absolutely. One of the greatest sources of unhappiness is mood disorder. Mood disorder meaning generalized anxiety and clinical depression. This is a hugely important problem, especially for people under 35 today. We've all heard about the explosion of mood disorders, especially since the coronavirus epidemic and the onset of the overuse and misuse of screens in people's lives. And so the result of that is that this is the number one thing that's pushing up unhappiness. Now, this is a distinction that matters because happiness and unhappiness are not opposites. They're largely governed in different hemispheres of the brain, as a matter of fact. So to say, if I got rid of the screens and had fewer aggravations and mood disorders, I would be happier. That's wrong. You'd be less unhappy.
Wow.
So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And you know, I try to make that distinction a lot in my teaching.
What do you mean it's in two different centers of the brain? This is like your prefrontal cortex and your what? Where does happiness versus unhappiness live?
When we're talking about mood, that's largely a limbic phenomenon. So the limbic system is sort of the second part of your brain. The first part of your brain, often called the reptilian brain, is the part of your brain that senses stimuli around you below your level of consciousness. That's in your brainstem and cerebellum, et cetera. That says, you know, what the air temperature is and the, you know, the light and whether somebody who's with you is a threat to you. And that's, you're not paying attention to that. Your body is, but you're not, because it would distract you too much. That sends these signals to the limbic system, which was developed between 2 and 40 million years ago. We have this in common with all of the mammals. It's also known as the paleo-mammalian brain to neuroscientists. And the limbic system of the brain creates emotions. Emotions are the universal language of humanity. We do have an actual language that we all speak. It's not Esperanto. It's emotions, and we all have the same emotions. Fear, anger, disgust, and sadness are the 4 basic negative emotions. Joy, interest, and surprise are the basic positive emotions, and we all have those 7 emotions. That's the universal language, and those signals to us are, you've picked up some stimulus that says something should be either avoided or approached. And so you get negative or positive emotions as a result of that. That's all they are, is just that particular information. And what you find is that different parts of the limbic system govern these different moods. And so the negative emotions, they're largely, and again, these are newer studies and it's somewhat contested in neuroscience, we see more activity in the right side of the brain when people are experiencing negative emotions. And that governs the left side of the body. So it's interesting when you see little kids. I live with one of my grandsons now, and he's little. I mean, he's managed by his limbic system. He's not being managed by the prefrontal cortex, the executive centers of his brain yet, because he's not even 2. When he falls down or something, which he does a lot because, you know, he's not that coordinated, you don't know if the waterworks are coming, but you can see a little twitch on the left side of his face if he's about to cry, because that means the right side of his brain, fear, anger, disgust, and sadness, are especially active. And that gives you a premonition of what's going to come. So a little twitch in the left side of his face, and then he starts to cry.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. So watch the left side of people's faces when you're talking to them, and they will not be able to involuntarily control the activity. Slight twitches, a little bit more left face activity when they're experiencing negative emotions when you're talking to them. It's a good tell with your husband.
Wow. So let's, I'm going to tell him. I'm not going to tell
Don't
him,
tell
actually.
him.
No, I'm going to keep that.
I just
Yeah.
gave you
Why
special
would
powers.
Oh,
You and your entire audience now have special powers.
yeah, you can't
He
watch
listens
this
though,
episode.
right?
No, we have to hide this.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to somebody and let's say I'm talking to somebody and they think poorly of
Yeah.
me, or they are having a thought where they don't believe me in a
Right.
second, might that sometimes show as a twitch on your
Yeah, well,
left?
or here's generally how you'll see it. It'll be like this. People are watching us on YouTube, they can see this. I'll have to describe it for people just listening to us.
Oh, yeah.
You notice that it's easier to scrunch up the left side of your face than the right side of your face?
Yeah, it is.
And the reason is because you have more practice doing that. The muscles they're more accustomed. So when you're concentrating on something that's not going very well, you're in traffic, you're more likely to have a kind of an asymmetric little grimace where you favor the left side of your face. And when somebody's listening to you and they're doing this, that means that left side of the face is going. That means the right side of the brain is more active. Again, this is contested because everything in neuroscience is contested. And I'm sure some, 5 neuroscientists are listening to us going, no, the new paper in this, but this is what a lot of the work that's been going on, especially at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, has been talking about these asymmetric brain activities that correspond to negative and positive emotions.
You're going to give me a complex now. I'm going to be watching
know.
everybody's left
know.
eye to see
I
if
know.
they believe me or not.
I know this knowledge is actually burdensome.
Yeah, I bet.
Running a podcast or any content operation is a grind. The editing, the clipping, the captions. It's enough to make anyone quit before the fun even starts. Enter Riverside. This tool is your content powerhouse. Forget decent quality virtual calls. Riverside gives you 4K video, pristine audio, and makes deadweight tasks disappear faster than bad ideas. Their text-based editor slashes, silences, and edits errors with one click. Needing some extra clips? Riverside's AI Magic Clips finds the moments people actually care about and delivers them to you. No guessing, no endless replays. And here's the kicker. You don't even need to record in the platform to use its features. You have the option to upload your footage to Riverside, letting it handle the heavy lifting. So you can save your brain power for the creative stuff. So stop drowning in edits, get busy creating, hit the link in the description, use code Cody, and thank me later.
That kind of takes me to this other idea I was wondering about for you, which is, when you wake up, I don't know, a lot of times I wake up in the morning and like one day I'm kind of happy. One day I'm not so happy. Do you think we can actually control our happiness, or is it out of our control?
We can manage our emotions. So you can't control your happiness directly, but you can manage your emotions, and you can adopt habits through proper understanding that will give you a greater frequency of emotional control and the emotions that are both appropriate to the situation and those that you choose, which is really important thing to do. So the whole point is I can't make myself happy all the time. Choose happiness. I see that on people's bumper stickers, and I feel like ramming my car into that. It's because, you need unhappiness, and your suffering is a very sacred thing. It's an incredibly important and beautiful thing, as a matter of fact. However, you can manage your emotions much, much more than you currently do. Almost everybody can. And the way to do that is by training your prefrontal cortex, which is the most human part of your brain. This is the bumper of tissue, 30% of your brain by weight behind your forehead. That's all of your conscious stuff is going on in that part of the brain. Training it to understand your limbic system and to react according to the way that you want to, as opposed to the way that you feel. Now, that's a whole set of techniques, self-management techniques called metacognition, which sounds really fancy, but just thinking about thinking. Real consciousness about your emotions and then reasoning about your emotions gives you unbelievable amounts of managerial control, where you can decide, I don't want that emotion because I don't think it's actually appropriate. I'm just feeling it because, I'm an animal. But I've decided that I'm not going to act according to it. You can choose gratitude over resentment. You can choose humor over sadness. You can do a lot of emotional substitution on the basis of this. You can also wait when you're feeling a negative emotion so you're not reactive. Your grandma probably said, Cody, count to 10 when you're angry, before you answer. She was telling you to be metacognitive. The reason is because you were letting your prefrontal cortex catch up. Your limbic system is fast, your prefrontal cortex is slow, Let your prefrontal cortex catch up, and you can manage a lot of your negative emotions, use them in an appropriate way, react the way that you want to. You'll get a lot happier.
So let's put that into practice. Let's say you're in a fight with your husband, totally
Yeah.
hypothetical speaking.
Weird. I mean, I don't actually have a
100%.
husband, but so yeah.
I do. So let's say you're in a fight with your significant other and you're mad and your gut reaction
Yeah.
is to go at them.
Right.
What is a practice to slow down anger or to control your mood?
Yeah. So there's a lot, almost any time that people give advice to couples, they're inadvertently giving them advice on metacognition. So for example, if you're quarreling a lot with your partner and you go to somebody who gives you advice on, one of the things that they'll say is when you're having a quarrel or you're feeling really, really angry, say to your partner, I want to talk about this, but I don't want to talk about it right now because I'm really mad. That's called a hot hedonic state, or you have lots of strong negative emotions right now. I want to talk about it later. Can we talk about this after dinner? And you put a pin in it. And by the time you get there, you're in a cool hedonic state. You can actually talk about it, and you're highly metacognitive at that particular point. That's a way to do that. Another way to do it is when you're actually having an argument and your partner says something you don't like, you stop, you think about it, and then you say, is what you're trying to say, and then you paraphrase what your partner's just said. All you've done is given yourself time to catch up to your own limbic system. You're not trying to placate your partner, you're trying to placate your limbic system, is what it comes down to. You're being less animal and you're being more human. And these are all kinds of ways to do that.
That's so useful.
Yeah.
Also, I think there is something really nice about named frameworks. Like I could 1,000% see me talking to Chris and saying, I am on what did you call it? I'm hot hedonically?
I'm in a hot hedonic state right now.
I'm in a hot hedonic
He's like,
state right now.
he's like, awesome. Like, say, no, it sounds good. It's not.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Not great. That's really useful.
Yeah,
Oftentimes
totally.
I feel like therapy too is not specific enough as opposed, when you go, at least some of our therapists,
Right.
they give you these things that you should do. Like,
Right.
yeah, pause, take a breath. But if you back it up with the research and data, I at least find that I'm more likely to use it. I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's actually me hijacking this. It's not about the other person. Let's not go all the way back to the first time that he did something wrong 17 years
Right.
ago.
Yeah, it's because you're a student and you actually want understanding. But most people get the best response from therapy when the therapy is a teacher to you about you. That's helping you to get a PhD in codiness, right? That's really important that you actually have this self-understanding. The more that you're learning about yourself from therapy, the more likely it is to have a beneficial impact over the long term. When somebody just wants to solve your problems or give you hacks, run the other way. That's just not very helpful, and it's certainly not enduring. Is how this works, and this is one of the reasons that I do the work that I do. I'm teaching people about themselves. That's what I really want. You want the secret to happiness? Understand yourself. Understand the science such that you can change your own habits and do so very, very aware and awake. And then the last part is most important, which is go teach it to others. The way that you get a happier world is by creating a generation of happiness teachers. That's my movement. That's what I really want to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, my class at Harvard is called Leadership and Happiness. And on the first day of class, I say, this is the first day in your elite training to become a happiness teacher like me. In business, because they're all MBAs. They're all going to run businesses. And they want to be managers, but great managers are teachers.
What is the secret to happiness?
So there isn't a single secret to happiness because happiness isn't just a thing that you flip a switch. You don't become happy. You could say that the secret to happiness is understanding the methods toward happierness. It's a whole lot of self-knowledge and a commitment to actually practice and live life in a different way is how it comes about. If there were a secret to happiness, we'd know it. I'd be selling it. It would be going like hotcakes on Amazon.
We'd be on your plane.
Yeah,
right
totally.
Now.
We would be doing
only
this on
do
my plane.
podcasts on your plane.
That's right. But I wouldn't have been the one to find it. It would have been found a long time ago. This is the thing that people think they want, and it's really, really elusive because there isn't a switch. Happiness is a multidimensional phenomenon that's not fundamentally, it's a combination. You and I have talked about this in the past of enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning, which is a whole vast literature and set of techniques. It's actually a journey. It's an incredible adventure. And that's how I see it. That's what I really want, is I want a generation of Americans who are suffering a lot to see it as an opportunity to actually make their hobby, their avocation, the search for happiness, around the science based on this, because it's so fun and interesting.
And you have said before that you actually are not natural state happy.
Yeah. That's actually why I got into this business in the first place. I'm a behavioral scientist, and for years and years I did work that I thought was useful. I mean, I did work on beauty, I did work on charity, but I found that I gravitated toward the big question that I had, which is, how can I be a happier person? It's me search as opposed to just research. Because I come from gloomy stock, and about 50% of your baseline mood levels is genetic. We know this from identical twins that were separated at birth and given personality tests as twins at about age 40. There's tons of interesting papers on this, and you can even see these pairs of identical twins that didn't know they had twins and are reunited. It's on YouTube. It's a beautiful thing. And when they're given personality tests, it turns out that a lot of their personalities are genetic, including about half of their happiness. So their baseline mood level. And so, your mother literally made you unhappy. So you got to change your habits. And part of changing your habits is changing your knowledge. And for me, man, I suffered through a PhD in social science as a social scientist. So I got to use it for something that's really, really important for what the world really wants, starting with what I really want. And that's why I wound up in this business.
It's interesting because now that I've done the podcast and have been in the circles I've been for a minute, I've met a lot of professors.
Yeah.
They don't seem that happy on
Yeah.
average. I mean, I've said it to his face, and we're buddies enough, so I think I can say it. Like, I remember having Scott Galloway on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
God, you're exactly what I thought you were going to be. You are not a happy dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm baseline not happy. I'm like, will you laugh today on this? And he's like, probably not, because we've talked about it. And I was like, so all this stuff that you do, that you kind of make these self-deprecating jokes about, like, this is your steady state. It's kind of where you want to be. I was wondering, is there a connection or a correlation between intelligence and unhappiness? Are you smarter if you're smarter, are you more unhappy?
Yeah, no. There is there actually isn't very much correlation at all between cognitive ability and happiness. There are some correlations with education and happiness and unhappiness. And so what you find is that people, when they get more education from high school through college, they tend to get happier. And part of the reason is because they have their lives tend to be more equilibrated. They tend to have more opportunities. And so probably they're not getting happier. Probably they're eliminable sources of unhappiness, which is really what's going on. So their well-being is rising on the unhappiness side, not the happiness side. And then when people hang around graduate school for long enough, their unhappiness starts to rise again.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it might actually be a selection effect. You might find that a lot of people who are sort of discontented with the world, they tend to self-select into the graduate school environment, is what you find. But really happy people, one of the things that they do, they gravitate toward just opportunity. I bet more people are reading, Main Street Millionaire, who are naturally happy people. Why? Because they're optimists. Optimists tend to be entrepreneurs. They're the people who see something much better in the future. Whereas, a lot of people, especially social scientists, they don't have an especially sunny view of human nature. They tend to think that everything is socially constructed. They tend to be very non-religious, and we find that non-religious people tend to be less happy than religious people because they don't think that there's something big and good and beautiful that lies in store for all of us if we live right. And so the result is that there isn't that kind of optimism that you typically see in probably the people that you're hanging around with a lot more.
That's fascinating because if you think about it, we've talked about this before with your dark triad and how a lot of our leaders today are dark triad, this narcissistic tendency and this sort of real pessimism mixed with darkness. And then if we have that same phenomenon happening with those we deem experts, aka academics, we've let some of the leaders and biggest minds that drive, I don't know, almost every decision we make in a society as connected as we are today, be driven by maybe pessimistic, unhappy people.
Well, certainly pessimists. There's a lot of pessimists in that. So there's two different phenomena that we're looking at here. So you refer to the dark triad, which is this combination of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. In other words, it's all about me. I'm willing to hurt you, and I feel no remorse when I do. And if you're above average on those three, and there's really good tests, you can on my website, you can take the test for the dark triad at arthurbrooks.com, totally free. Take it for a friend, take it for a potential romantic partner, right?
Yeah.
And if you're above average, which isn't to say that you're an axe murderer, but to be just above the population average across all three, then you're going to be in about 7% of the population. You'll be deemed a dark triad, which has certain characteristics that are just not favorable to leadership and not helpful to other people. I mean, don't work for one. Don't marry one. I mean, you don't want that is the way that works. And we have an environment these days where a lot of people in media and especially in politics are tending toward the dark triad. And for a series of weird cultural circumstances, we're rewarding them. They tend to be bullies. And the result is that even though we don't like bullies particularly, we like bullies on our side when we're afraid of the bullies on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so you go through these periods where dark triads are rewarded, especially if they're intelligent. We see that less among intellectuals. I don't know very many dark triads in academia. I actually don't see it very often.
Why?
Well, part of it is just it's harder to be rewarded under those circumstances because, megalomania in academia, where you're being rewarded by your colleagues and lifted up by others in tenure committees, and it's not an ecosystem that rewards that very much like politics, where politics, if this is the right moment and you're a maniac, you're going to win.
Yeah.
Right. But in academia, if you're a maniac, people are going to be like, no. But you can be pessimistic, to be sure. Now, in academia, there are lots of dark triads. They just don't happen to be faculty mostly. They're activists. Okay. Most of these, and there's a really interesting papers that we've seen recently, the dark triads, they're disproportionately social activists. These are people that want to fire up other people with anger and fear. I want to make you angry and afraid. I want you to be aggrieved. I want you to feel like a victim because then I can conscript you into my war. And that's a classic dark triad move. So if you go on campuses or any place and you see people who are really shrill activists trying to tell young people that they should be afraid and they should be angry about whatever cause du jour that we're finding, you're very likely to find a dark triad at the head of that movement.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I think it's interesting some of the moves Elon is theoretically making for Twitter, trying to make it kinder. We'll see if that works. So far, so not good.
It's a very Wild West environment out there.
It is, but I think this is such a good barometer to have because a lot of times, what do people say these days? Everybody's good. Are there bad people? No, they aren't. We're all just like trying to figure it out. We figure it out at different stages. And if I've seen one thing from being on the internet is there are some really unhappy people who want you to be unhappy too.
For sure.
And you should just acknowledge that.
Tons of dark triads on social media in particular, and because it rewards dark triad behavior, it rewards anonymity, it rewards trolling, actually it's more of a dark tetrad is what we find, which adds a fourth characteristic, which is sadism. And so when you get the motive behind it being, I want your pain, that's a really nasty business. And that's what we find a whole lot. And there's a very interesting paper called Trolls Just Want to Have Fun that talks about the fact that you tend to see psychopathic sadistic behavior in anonymous social media activity. So one of the things that people on a first date should do as a barometer of whether or not you're accidentally getting involved with a dark triad personality is to say, do you like to post anonymously on the internet? Because the answer is yes, you're overwhelmingly likely to be talking to a dark triad. You're overwhelmingly likely to be talking to a pathological personality, somebody who really likes to stir up trouble and hurt other people. And social media lends itself to that. So if you spend too much time on X or any of these platforms, you're going to think that the whole world's burning down. And the reason is because 7% of the population is overrepresented there. It's like the prison population. I heard one estimate that's hard for me to evaluate, that 85% of the prison population is dark triad. It's just that they tend to make really, really stupid decisions, and that's why, in hurting other people, they wind up in prison. They engage in criminal activity. Social media is like prison. That it's an overrepresentation of these pathological personalities that want to stir you up, hurt you, exploit you, take your stuff, make you mad, freak you out, whatever it happens to be.
And they get off on it. It's
just
a wild
delete
thing.
The app. I recommend that everybody go on a social media cleanse very regularly, so you can understand that the ordinary world, the non-social media world, is actually pretty good.
And it's much more real.
It's real life.
Yeah.
And some people actually don't want real life because it's so boring compared to prison.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is like a little heroin hit
Yeah.
when you get on the
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah. I've met people who spent, 20, 30 years in prison and really struggle when they come out because real life is just so slow moving and boring. Yeah.
And they want to go back in.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
That's like somebody who can't stand to not be on X.
Yeah, I've met a few of them actually. So let's say that you're a young person and
Yeah.
you don't want to date a narcissist or
Right.
a dark triad.
And you don't.
What are and you don't.
Unless you're a narcissist. Actually,
Right.
you want somebody who's not because then you can exploit.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So how would you make sure that's not who you're dating? What are 3 or 4 things you could do?
Yeah, so I've written an awful lot about these particular characteristics, and I have screens and things that you should actually be paying attention to. But the whole point is understanding what that constellation actually is. So narcissists, especially narcissists who are also Machiavellian and somewhat psychopathic, they present unbelievably well. If you're getting love bombed by somebody, that's very likely a dark triad.
What is love bombing?
And that's basically moving on you super fast, sending you chocolates, sending you flowers. It's just, I love you so much from the very beginning. If they're moving too quickly into the zone of trying to sweep you off your feet, that's always what dark triads do.
Why?
Because they show really well, and they prey. This is generally speaking a gendered phenomenon. So these are dark triad men do this.
Yep.
And they have almost a perfect detector for a syndrome called hemophilia in women, which is, it can happen to men too, but it's most likely in women. Not hemophilia, which is a blood disorder. Hemophilia without the H, which is women who fall in love really quickly. And it's a pretty common phenomenon. There's a bunch of literature on this. And so dark triads, they have a sixth sense for hemophilic women. And they'll just love bomb them, and within a week be practically moving in together, and then draining their bank accounts and cheating on them, and and treating them really horribly. Knowledge is power. So I've worked with lots and lots of young women about this, talking to them about what you should be looking out for in yourself and in others. And we talk about the brain science of how this works. If you're hemophilic, you're going through this neurochemical cascade of falling in love much more quickly than the average person. So that cascade it starts off, the ignition starts with the sex hormones, with attraction, actually comes from testosterone and estrogen. Then this goes into the anticipation and euphoria phase, which is a lot about norepinephrine and dopamine. Then it goes into bonding to the other person, where serotonin levels fall. So a part of the brain called the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex becomes highly active. This is almost indistinguishable from clinical depression, because you're ruminating on the other person. This is when you send 100 text messages like a moron and feel humiliated.
Never
and
done
that's
that.
because when you're falling in love, you'll do weird stuff, and that's because your serotonin levels are low. And what you really want in the end is the imprinting, bonding on each other with oxytocin, which is this bonding hormone, also known as the love molecule. And you go through this process, and it usually takes a certain amount of time. And if you sync up in that and you're falling in love, it's great. But if you're going through this in hours and the other person is going through it in days and weeks, it's a problem. And if the other person isn't going through it at all, they're just trying to exploit you, it's a big problem unless you've got this knowledge, is what it comes down to. So recognizing the characteristics of narcissists is really important. They're going to be trying to sweep you off your feet. They're also, it's interesting because they have all these tells. Narcissists, everything's about them. Right. The average number of questions asked by a man on a first date, according to my colleague Allison Woodbrooks at HBS, 0.
No way.
Yeah. That's the average. That's the median number of questions asked by a man on a first date with a woman. Yeah, yeah. So if on the second and third date you're still not getting any questions about you, you get a narcissist. That's a big tell.
That's a good one.
They're just not curious about you. Yeah. It's not like they were raised by wolves. They just literally don't care about you. And if you're the only one, if it's asymmetric in that way, and those types of things, if they're talking an awful lot about the people who've done bad things to them, if they have a persecution complex, if they tend to feel victimized, if you've noticed that they've moved around a lot because they haven't been able to hold a job, all of these are dark triad tells.
That's such good intel,
Yeah.
especially the question part, because I think I had a few interactions with one in business and one in personal relationship. But the personal one, I remember being so enamored by the human, like very charismatic.
Totally. They
And
show so well.
they show so well.
Yeah.
And I think there was that love bombing thing going on. And then simultaneously, I was just like, wow, the stories you're telling and the things that have happened. And oh, they did that to you. How could they have done that to you? And then if I look back, probably I didn't share much of anything.
Yeah. That's right.
So
That's right.
that's a great tell.
Totally. And when you think about it, what the narcissist wants you to fall in love with him.
Yeah.
Wants you. He's not going to fall in love with you. He wants you to fall in love with him. He wants, or she wants, an asymmetric relationship. That's the nature of it. And so if things are asymmetric and they look they're asymmetric on purpose, you got a dark triad.
Why can a narcissist ever fall in love? Can you change a narcissist?
It's not clear. And part of the biggest problem is we can have lots of pathologies and we can't change because we want to. The problem is that narcissists don't want to change. The problem is not that you can't change them. The problem is that you actually need them to buy into the process. And if they don't, because they don't want to change, you're not going to change them involuntarily. You're just not going to. And so I actually haven't seen cases in the literature or in my own work of a dark triad actually becoming not a dark triad.
Wow. So how do you, I guess you just
do you
don't
do?
date them. Yeah, what do you do?
Avoid them.
Avoid them.
Avoid them. Just avoid them as much as you possibly get. But don't marry them. Don't date them. Don't hire them. Right? And if it turns out you do hire them, fire them.
Yeah.
Right? And again, now's the moment right now because most of the in industry today, in American business today, bosses all know who their troublemakers are. Yeah. All your activists in the workforce, these are disproportionately dark triads. The ones who are blowing up your Slack channel saying the boss is a racist, assuming that you're not a racist.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be a racist, right? But people who are just basically attacking you and trying to gin up all sorts of ill will, these are dark triads. Get rid of your dark triads because, by the way, they're also unproductive. They're also not good workers because they're doing things for themselves. They're selfish and nobody wants to work with them. They're making everybody miserable around them. So even if they're ringleaders, they seem popular, they aren't. And the greatest sigh of relief you're going to hear is when you actually do the hard work, the boss work of saying bye-bye. And now is the time, I think, in American business when you're going to be more able to do that in the past because we've just gone through this horrible period of bullying in American business where, you know, everybody's beleaguered and everybody's afraid, and they're afraid of these dark triad types actually in the workplace. So don't date them, don't marry them, don't hire them, don't have them working for you if you know who they are. If you've made that mistake already, don't vote for them.
Yeah. That might be hard when everybody is one.
I know.
So you want to run for president? I think I asked you that last time.
I know,
You're
I
like,
know.
no, thanks.
Yeah, I'm not a dark triad, but it's you know, it's funny because we kind of get what we deserve. That was remember Ed Koch? Remember who he was? You know, the mayor of New York,
Yeah.
and he was a super popular mayor of New York. But you know, like all of them, they go past their poll date and then they wind up getting killed by the voters. And so he finally loses his race and he's a super funny guy. He was hilarious. And he says in his press conference, the people of New York have spoken and now they're going to pay.
Oh my God. That's not good.
I know, it's awesome. You know, it's just so funny. And so you know, it was a joke, kinda, right? Kinda. And so this is the thing, you know, if we're a self-governing people, and if we keep voting for these dark triads, well, look in the mirror, guys. You don't like what's going on in our country? Then stop voting for people that you think are going to be good bullies. Don't vote for somebody who's simply your walking middle finger.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
well, we'll have to see what happens in the next go round.
we'll just, you know, hopes and prayers, thoughts and prayers.
A little pray.
Yeah.
But you know, I think one thing that you're doing to push back on all of this, if we can't control the people on high, we have to be able to control ourselves.
Exactly
Like that's
right.
all that we can really do at the end of the day.
Totally, and that's a business principle that you talk about in your book. This is an incredibly important business principle. You know, there's a difference between people who say, I can manage myself, that my entrepreneurial endeavor, my enterprise is me. And my small business is an extension of my self-management, as opposed to people who are like, sure hope my next boss isn't a jerk. Sure hope I like my job more than I liked my last job. Don't go through life as a victim, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part and the thing that we have to obsess on a little bit. You know, I was, you know, you run, I always mess this up, the Happiness Institute.
So I have the Leadership and Happiness Lab at
The
the
Leadership and
Harvard
Lab.
at
Every
the-
time
so it's-
there's the Happiness Institute for the books. Every time I say it.
No. So we have an organization that organizes my writing and speaking and media, and then inside Harvard I have a lab on research about how to teach happiness, how people learn the skills of greater happiness.
So a lab there is like a research lab. It's just like Andrew Huberman might have a biology lab at Stanford.
It's just a
whatever.
lot less developed than that. It's small. It's an artisanal organization.
I like a little bohemian
Yeah.
spot at Harvard.
Yeah, totally. It's a little bit of Austin right inside of Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people wouldn't believe that, except that you have arguably one of the most popular classes, if not the most popular elective at Harvard, which is actually about love and happiness, right?
yeah.
We were talking before, and, I think, is it true that one of the keys to happiness is love?
Happiness is love. So it's almost an identity. It's almost a one-to-one correspondence is what we actually find. So so the class that I teach at the Harvard Business School is called Leadership and Happiness, and it's an MBA class. It's a very popular elective. It starts actually. We're taping this a week and a half before the class actually starts. So I'm developing every year. I develop it new, and I'm looking at the roster and it's completely jammed. I have 400 on the waiting list or something like that. It's a thrill to actually do it. But the main point that I tell them is that really it comes down to happiness at the end of the day. Getting greater happiness really has everything. The hygiene, the technique has everything to do with the love in your life is what it comes down to. I'll give you an example. So there's this 85-year longitudinal study called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. You've heard about it before. It's been Harvard researchers have been fielding a survey with the same sample of people for 85 years. So they can see what are they doing, how happy are they, how healthy are they, how are their relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a good representative sample. Started off as just Harvard students in the late 1930s. And it contained, JFK was in the original sample. The Boston Strangler was in the original sample, et cetera. And
It's
then
a spectrum.
I know. Then they branched out to a group of people who didn't go to college, and then they brought in spouses and children, so that it's really demographically representative at this point. And they know what people do over the course of their life that leads them to wind up as happy, healthy people. So the healthy ones are diet, exercise, smoking and drinking, or smoking and substances. These days, it was drinking in the old days, but it would be all of the euphorics that are really bad for you, despite what we like to think. Almost any euphoric that you use to change your consciousness is a neurotoxin, and it's bad for you. If it makes you feel high, it's a neurotoxin. That's what it comes down to.
Do we have any studies and data on mushrooms? This is like the mushroom capital of the world.
I know,
Austin.
and that's not a euphoric per se. It's not exact. It doesn't work in exactly the same way. It's not like getting an awesome buzz.
No, sometimes it sucks.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like
You're not doing mushrooms at Harvard?
I'm old enough to be like, oh no, I missed so many things. I'm glad I missed. I missed dating apps. I missed, oh man, it's so awesome to be married, 33 years. And so people,
That is very
be
that is
like-
an underrated line, actually. People are like, how could you be married for 33 years? I'm like, how could you not? I'd be a fucking mess right now.
Oh my gosh.
If I had to be out
It's
there
like
dating random people.
dating.
No,
I know
absolutely
guys
not.
my age dating.
Yeah, that's
It's
tough.
a nightmare.
That's tough. Worse for women, though. I think women, like if I was dating right now, and then I'm not going to say how you, but let's say I was like older, oof, that's real tough. Men,
Yeah.
you get silvery and like,
I don't
silver
know, man.
fox.
Oh,
Nobody
man.
goes, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
That woman, she's so beautifully rugged looking.
It's
not like
that's a big part of my class, by the way. It's called the most popular unit of my class called Falling in Love and Staying in Love.
oh, let's talk about that.
That's the module in the class that my students they're trained killers in business. They're like, Sicilian mafia assassins in business. They're the best. But nobody ever taught them about what really matters in the business of life, which is love. And they don't, and there's technique that really matters, and there's science that you can actually really use. And so that's the most important thing. And one of the things that I talk to them about is, what's the range? How do you want to set up your relationships? And so I often use business terms. An immature startup often doesn't work. Getting married at 18 or 19 is usually a little bit too young. But waiting too long and trying to do a merger, that's a problem too. And then after that, when it's much older, then you're in the realm of acquisitions and hostile takeovers, and that's really a bad situation for stable marriages. What you want is a mature startup. And so you want to actually have a little bit of experience, but you find that people from about 25 to 32, that's the kind of the range where people are most likely to have successful relationships because they're a startup. They're not merging to fully formed lives and careers. And there's all kinds of interesting data about what that looks like. What does a startup together look like? And it's like one bank account is what that looks like as a very practical matter. If you're a merger, one of the tells of being a merger is you have separate finances, and that's not a good predictor of actually of growing together. Because here's the thing: you're going to change over the course of your life. Happy couples change together. And happy couples that are changing together are the ones who started together, so they're flexible and they see their own desires and tastes and views reflected in the other person. They're kind of one mind. It's kind of the hive mind of the startup. That's why, people who grow up together and start businesses together are often really successful.
So are you more likely to have a successful marriage if you are a certain age?
Yeah, you are. And the answer is not at a certain age now. It's when the relationship started. It's really, really hard. And so there's some pretty interesting data. For example, if men over 30 who've never either cohabitated or been married, they have a 1 in 3 likelihood of a substance abuse disorder. Yeah, there's a reason that they've not been domesticated, is what it comes down to. And that's why women find, if they're not married when they're in their 30s, they're often like, God, the guys my age who've never been married. and so then now I'm talking to way older guys who are divorced. And that's one of the reasons that you see these asymmetries, that actually age asymmetries that actually often happen. And so these are just empirical regularities. I mean, not good or bad, no judgment, unless, everybody makes their own judgment about that, but those are the empirical regularities that we often see. So again, it's the startup mentality. My kids got married super young. My sons got married at 22 and 23, had their first children at 23 and 24. Raise them Catholic, they go to Catholic stuff.
Yeah.
But what we find is that it's mid-20s, 25, 26, 27 to about 32. That's kind of the magic zone where people have enough experience, they know themselves, they've made mistakes, they've learned from their mistakes. It's like their early startup experience that didn't work out. And the early failures in the startup world, but they're not jaded, right? And so they're not scarred, and certainly they're not. They're willing to hitch up with somebody else and become hive mind.
Yeah,
Still.
that does. We have a couple of friends here in Austin that just jokingly love them, but we called them the Lost Boys because they would just kind of never age, right? They'd want to stay.
It's kind of a Peter Pan deal going on.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and they're wonderful humans, but
and they probably don't have a substance use disorder, but they're having a hard time growing up.
They are, and and because they're relatively reasonable humans, business people, business kicks you in the teeth constantly. So I think it's harder to be completely unreasonable if you're running a business.
Right.
You just get gut checked constantly. But these guys in particular, I would introduce them to a guy, a girl and or a woman. And I remember one of the times I'm like, what is wrong with you that was the way that you thought that interacting was appropriate? They're like, well, that's what I do with all of my buddies. I'm like, not the same thing. So I do think it's not very popular to say that it's quite hard when you're fully matured to compromise with another fully matured human.
It's hard to do. You've got your own style of living. You've got your own technique of interacting with other people, indeed. And you become less flexible, quite frankly. And, for a lot of men, women are different than men, and they don't fully experience that because they don't grow up together. I've been with my wife since I was 24 and she was 25, and we grew up together. Yeah. I don't understand adult life without my wife. It's just there's just the way that things, I perceive the world in no small part through the brain of my wife.
Are people happier when they're married?
Yes. Now, this requires that you not have a terrible marriage. And so what you find is that people are both happier and unhappier when they're married, because the small percentage of marriages that are completely dysfunctional but still together, that's misery. I mean, that kind of tension with daggers drawn is just awful. But most people are not in that situation, and these people tend to be happier. You find that, especially true. I mean, for the longest time, they used to say that there was early data that turns out to not have been replicated very well, that men are happier when they're married than women are, that marriage is good for men, but it's not good for women. That's wrong. It's good for both. It's really, really good for both, especially if at the right time you're a merger. I mean, you're a startup, and you grow up together and understand yourself as a unit, as a fighting force. Iron sharpens iron.
Very true. Yeah. Are there any quotes in the Bible about like quarrelsome men? I always hear the quote of like, "There's nothing worse than a quarrelsome wife," or something like that.
That's
What's the
Proverbs,
quote?
yeah, in Proverbs. But then again, then it's followed by Proverbs 31. It talks about that eulogizes the virtuous woman, who helps the man prosper in all that he does, and who's like a growing vine, and and of course that's the proverb that's cited on Shabbos by Orthodox Jews every Friday night. That eulogizing, the beautiful, wonderful wife who, makes the world go around.
Okay, so we get the positive and the negative.
We do. We certainly do. And most of the rest of the Bible is about men behaving badly. So
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better. We don't say husband explicitly.
no,
but
it's just,
implied.
it's like, you don't even need to talk about the husband experience. It's just kind of the whole panoply of male behavior.
Yeah. Why do you think so many young men are attracted to the Andrew Tate model of connection and love and lack of connection with women today?
Well, we're in a particularly pathological period in American history where relationships aren't forming, which is a real problem. And this happens from time to time. We tend to go in and out of relationship cycle and it's funny. It's kind of like this is the opposite of the sexual revolution. This is the anti-sexual revolution, where people are not pairing up in either a bad way, depending on your morals, or a good way. There's just, what you find is that people are about half as likely to be married in their 20s. They're less likely to be cohabitating. They're less likely to be having sex. They're less likely to say they're in love than ever before. And that leads to just an unbelievable amount of loneliness. And it has a lot to do with how we technologically intermediate our relationships. I mean, dating apps are horrible for lots and lots of men, because what dating apps do is that they adjudicate their relationships based on these characteristics that you actually can't get information on electronically or in an abbreviated form. I'm not quite making sense. Here's basically what it comes down to. If you actually have to meet somebody, you meet an actual person, you're more likely to be attracted to somebody who's not in the 10% most obviously attractive portion of the population. If you're only looking at somebody's dating profile, then what you're going to find is, for a whole bunch of reasons that researchers have looked into, 80% of the overtures toward men go to 10% of the male population, and those are not the right guys. Those are a lot of dark triads. The dark triads are the ones who show the best in every format, including in dating profiles. And so the result of that is that lots of men are left behind, lots of men are lonely, lots of men are just really hostile and angry. A lot of guys are really lashing out because men need love. And so they just conclude that the problem is women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When the problem is really the format.
The problem is the format. The problem is the culture. The problem is the activism that has turned men and women against each other, that have made men and women hostile and suspicious and afraid of each other. Because that's actually fed into this kind of goofy culture war that we've got going on right now. I mean, and the truth of the matter is that it's going to change. The fever's going to break, and people are going to start falling in love again. But in the meantime, you have a lot of casualties of this culture war. And some of the casualties are lonely men and women.
So what do you tell young men at Harvard who want to meet somebody?
To get serious about it, to be as serious about the formation of your family as you are about the formation of your company. That dating is not entertainment. Dating is auditioning. You're auditioning for the role of husband. And that means not very many second dates. Not very many second dates, because second dates are mostly entertainment. And if the audition doesn't go well, then do everybody a favor. You're not doing her any favor by unless she's just into the entertainment experience as well. But if they're like, I'm really frustrated by this, and one of the ways that I'll do this is I'll say, let's look at the crystal ball. Think of yourself in 5 years and you're remarkably happier than you are right now, like 25% happier than you are right now. My students are on average 28 years old. Imagine you're 33 and you're 25% happier. Tell me the 5 reasons why, in order. Number 1 is I'm married to somebody I'm in love with. Number 2 is my family is under control. Number 3 is, or my family situation is resolved. Number 3 is I know my spiritual path, something like that. And then like 4 and 5 are I have a really great job and I'm making a lot of money. That's never 1 and 2. Never 1 and 2. People, even at the Harvard Business School, that's not 1 and 2. They care about love. That's what they want. I say, okay, are you taking 1 and 2 seriously? Like, kind of leaving it up to chance. Well, let's talk about how to treat it with the same seriousness as you do your business life.
Fascinating. And what's the advice to a young woman who wants
It's
love?
the same. It's the same advice because people are people. Is what it comes down to. And let's talk about it. Because again, I mean, the world is not going to push you to fall in love. The world is going to push you to make money. The world is going to push you to be successful. Homo economicus. Go out there and get a job and make a bunch of money and be successful. Congratulations. Now you must be happy. And people are like, I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely. I'm working 110 hours in an investment bank and I'm making bank. And I cry myself to sleep over half a bottle of wine. What? That's not good. And the reason is because nobody's spoken to them honestly and seriously about the problem of love and how to get it and how to manage it. And this is not something that has to be left up to chance. On the contrary, we need better technique.
Do young men ever say to you, but I just want to date around. I just want to have lots of sex with lots of people, and I think that'll make me happy.
People don't self-select into the environment of my office hours in my class to come say that.
Do you think they think it?
I mean, I think that certainly there are bros who think that way, but that's not the way fundamentally people are wired. By the time people are thinking seriously about their happiness, they recognize that's a kind of an immature way of seeing life. Now, I get how evolution works. I get how the evolutionary imperatives are different for biological females and males, where women have a much greater investment in offspring. And so the result is they're much choosier with mates. And this is the way that it would be. I mean, David Buss here at UT Austin, have you had him on your show before?
No.
He's phenomenal. He's an evolutionary psychologist who does the absolute best work on gender differences in mating patterns.
Amazing.
He's phenomenal. As his work is, I don't know him. I'm a super fan of his research. And it makes perfect sense that you'd see that women men would, especially younger men, would tend to be more promiscuous when they're younger as a result of biological imperatives. But we're not subject exclusively to our biological imperatives. We have a divinity within. We have an ample prefrontal cortex that can help us make executive decisions that don't just go with the limbic system that says, mates, if I do that a lot, maybe I have 75 children. I mean, it's like nobody wants that. And you don't actually have to live according to that. And so the result of it is, particularly by the time that I'm meeting a lot of young people, they recognize, that they've got impulses and they've got tendencies, and a lot of them have a past, but they want something better. And what they want is to live in that spark of divinity that's within, and that spark of divinity actually comes along with long-term commitments to, and the hive mind of the couple, and the love that actually, the cosmic love that actually comes from forming a family. And you form a family the day that you link up permanently with your beloved.
I was reading a study the other day that Nordic countries are the happiest countries in the world. Is that true? And why?
Yeah, no. So those are studies that come from, I mean, this is the craziest thing. This is such a misuse of data. So, and there's a reason that we do these studies. And the reason is because the people who do these studies want us all to be Northern European social democracies. These are basically people who don't want, the wild, wild west of American individualism to reign supreme any place. And so what do we want? We want people to, live like bees. And so what they do is they find a way to say, I went to Denmark and I asked 1,000 people in Denmark how happy they were. And they said, I'm pretty content. And so they said, see, that's the happiest country. So we should all be like Denmark.
Wow.
That's
So it actually has so the study has a social steering.
To be fair,
Interesting.
nobody's ever said that's why we're trying to do this.
Of
and
course.
so this is a little bit ad
Yeah.
hominem on my part. And
Yeah.
so I apologize for that, but that's what's happening.
Interesting.
So imagine that we wanted to see who's got the best music, which country's got the best music. I'm going to go to 100 countries, and I'm going to field a questionnaire for 1,000, randomly selected human participants. We're going to answer the question, how much do you like your local music? And then based on who likes music the most, that's the best music in the world. You say, well, that's the dumbest thing. That's how they're measuring countries' happiness, is doing that.
Very dumb.
Yeah,
Also, having categorically met a lot of Nordic people doesn't check out.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you talk to, and I shot a documentary
Like Brazil,
film.
if you said Brazil, I might buy that, actually.
I know. And so, I've asked Danes, I've asked the speaker of the Danish parliament, what's the deal? And they're like, ugh, that stuff. They roll their eyes at these studies and they say, look, we're quite contented. And I'm like, I don't want contented. I'm like you. Yeah. I'm a small business owner. I want adventure. I want opportunity. That, by the way, that's the reason my grandparents got on a boat from Denmark and came to the United States. It's because they're like, this is boring. There's a word and again, I got nothing against the Danes. God love them. I mean, my family are Danes, right? But there's a word in Danish. You've heard this word hygge? Hygge, hygge. It means it's actually, you can't translate it. It means something like the cozy conviviality of the company of your friends on a comfortable couch or something like that, right? It's like
naturally
Friday with your friends on your comfy couch, shooting the breeze. It's comfort is what they want. And I'm like, I don't want hygge. I want the West. Yeah. I want the frontier. I want the adventure. That's why my grandparents booked it and went to South Dakota and started a farm. Right? That's why. They were orphans. They were first grade, educated, illiterate orphans. The wrong religion, and they came to the United States and they built a life. And so what that suggests is that I got nothing against Denmark, but don't give me Denmark. Give me America, man. That's what I want. And the people in Denmark who want America should come to America.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What about the fact that they list South Korea as like the unhappiest country?
That's just because that's how they answer the question. There's lots of
thing.
Russians, for example. I was lecturing on this at Moscow State University, and somebody explained to me that in Russian it's bad luck to say you're happy because it's going to turn on you.
Whoa.
Well, okay, then you can't trust data on that.
That makes sense. If you've ever met a Russian, they're not going to talk about their joyfulness.
And no, it's like, are you happy? It's like, I'm doomed if I say yes.
So they normally say, I'm doomed. Nothing matters, and we all die.
Yeah.
Which is very Russian philosophy. Of
I know.
Like, you read a little bit of Russian existentialism, and you're probably right there.
Yeah. And so people answer happiness questions, and the word for happiness is translated in different ways. And so the Romance languages, it's felicitas from Latin, is that like the felicitousness, felicitat, is means something different than in all the Germanic languages, where, for example, in German, the word for happiness is Glück, which literally means luck. In English, happiness comes from the Middle English word hop, and hop means luck. And so the Germanic languages like English and Danish and Swedish and Norwegian, et cetera, we're always talking about, sure hope it's good tomorrow. And in the Romance languages, it's like, party, baby.
That tracks too.
Kind of, and so the result is, how are you going to compare these concepts? I mean, across countries. You can compare people in countries over time. That's legit. I do that all the time. For looking at happiness trends inside populations, you can look at individuals all day long, but I don't compare countries. I don't think it's a legitimate empirical thing to do.
That was actually a very convincing argument. What about last time we talked, we were on this happiness trend that was not very positive
in the States, actually all over the world, but yeah.
Are we globally getting less happy?
Yeah, so there are exceptions. There are countries that are getting happier. And what you find is that, for example, sub-Saharan Africa is getting happier because their well-being levels are rising because economic development is eliminating lots of sources of basic unhappiness that you would find in any deeply impoverished populations. So that's really where a lot of the action is right now in terms of global well-being and again, wiping out poverty. And economic development and abundant energy and all these types of things are super important for lowering avoidable sources of unhappiness. In developed countries, the story is a little bit different because we've gotten past this point, and now we have a lot of these cultural trends that are giving us a climate of falling happiness and then a bunch of storms. So the climate of happiness is based on faith, family, friendship, and work, and the attitude toward work, which is the pillars of the happiest life for individuals, but it works in society too. And religiosity is in decline, family formation is in decline, loneliness is increasing, especially as we mediate relationships through technology, and people have a less healthy relationship toward their work than they did in the past, especially young people. And so that's why we sort of tick down half a percentage point a year in happiness in the United States and most of the West. Then we have storms like the coronavirus epidemic, where people are still not going back to where they were and seeing each other in person. I mean, rates of person-to-person friendship are still way below where they were in 2019, and less oxytocin, less eye contact, less touch, trouble. Political polarization, which is a nasty business for happiness. When activists and politicians are telling you have to hate somebody for what they believe, you're the one who has the hot coal in her hand to throw at somebody else. That's a Buddhist concept, is to pick up a hot coal and throw it at somebody else is like hating. And last but not least, of course, is what's going on with social media and dating apps, and how technology is actually has ripped us apart.
Yeah, you kind of single-handedly changed my view on having negative feelings towards others online, which is, I mean, took one conversation with you, which is probably why they call you the CEO whisperer, but it was essentially like every time you're fixating on people being negative towards you online or on somebody hating, and you're not sending them love, that is on you. You are grabbing the hot coal. And I don't know why. That seems maybe like common sense. Like, oh yeah, of course, I've heard that before. My grandmother said it. But for some reason, when you said it to me, it stuck. And from that point forward, I've really materially changed the way I think about negative people online. And I'm so much fucking happier.
Oh, much happier. It's just incredible. But there's a reason, by the way, that Codie and Arthur and everybody else, why their brains naturally fixate on that. You have literally more brain tissue dedicated to threats than you do to opportunities. And that's how the Sanchez has made it out of the Pleistocene, is by being very, very attuned to threats, is to be more resentful and suspicious and fearful and angry than grateful and peaceful and loving. I mean, that threats are something you better pay attention to, or they're going to be really, really lethal. And so your brain is developed to actually look at that, to the blinking pixel of the hostile person, the person who's smiling sweetly at you from across the room, but the person who's frowning angrily at you. That gets your attention, because that could be a big problem once you get out on the street, right? And that's what's going on. And we have a tendency with technologically mediated relationships like social media to treat them as if they were in-person relationships, as actual threats. So the way to deal with that is perception and attention. So perception is understanding what's really going on, and attention is what you decide to pay attention to. And you have control over both your perception and your attention. Understanding what's actually going on in your brain and in the brain of the other person on the other side there gives you enormous power to be a happier person, and, by the way, to also be a more successful person.
Knowledge is essentially power.
Incredible power.
I had a couple friends that went through really tough things online. Like, they were kind of personalities. One was Sriram, who got into it in Twitter. He's Indian, born that way, and he said a couple comments about H-1B visas that were taken 6 ways from Sunday, and he was sort of in this storm and epicenter of hate on Twitter. And knowing him as I do personally, he's a lovely man who really cares about this country and wants good things for it. And we may agree or disagree with his beliefs, which is totally fine. But what was interesting was when I was talking to him, having been on the other end of when people hate you on the internet before, I said, I'm curious, did it feel like a physical threat?
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time it happened to me, not to his extent, but it felt visceral. Like almost like, when you get an adrenal spike and you can feel it, you get tingly. Is that true? Does our brain process things that happen to us online as if it is in person and threatening?
For sure. So what happens is that you see something, it stimulates your optic nerve, is processed for what you're reading online in the occipital lobe of your brain, sending a signal to your amygdala, which is the fear and anger part of the limbic system of the brain, stimulating a signal that goes through the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland in your brain, then sending a signal to your adrenal glands, which sit above your kidneys, which will start to spit out epinephrine, adrenaline, and this happens in 74 milliseconds. Then, if you're in that zone, 20 minutes later, you get cortisol coming in behind it, which is supposed to keep you in a hyper-vigilant state so that you can actually stay ahead of the cheetah that wants to come and eat you or whatever it happens to be. Now, in this case, it's stupid nonsense, aka Twitter. But your brain is still registering it as if it's actually a predator, meaning that you still got this adrenaline that set you up for hypervigilance, and then the cortisol, which is keeping you awake, and by the way, also suppressing your immune system, because you don't want to be worrying about other little things when you need to be super vigilant about these particular predators, and that's when you can't sleep because you're not supposed to be able to sleep when you might get eaten, and you start treating it as if it were the kind of threat that it actually isn't. But that's how your system was created. This is a mismatch between our biological, our evolutionary environment and our technological environment. We were not built for Twitter. We were built for the savannah, and our body still acts as if it were. And so all of these threats, the only way you can combat this, number one, is by checking out, by saying, I'm not going to play, or is through understanding and self-management. That's the only way you can deal with this. Otherwise, you will be miserable if you're in public life.
It's so good. There were two other questions I was curious on with you. One is, I read a study that said, it was from the study, because I really should quote these and we're going to do it. Maybe you'll know it. Okay, I'll find it afterwards for you. It was done by Oracle. And the study said that 45% of people have not felt true happiness for more than 2 years, and 25% don't know or have forgotten what it means to feel truly happy. Do you think that's true?
Well, it's hard to know because I actually haven't seen, I've seen those data, but I haven't seen a time series. So I don't know longitudinally. I strongly suspect that if you went back years, people would be saying the same thing. That people, and part of the reason is just because retrospectively we think about our happiness in particular ways, that people think about how their life is. They think about what ideal happiness would be and then wish they could have it even though they actually can't. So a lot of this has to do with a misunderstanding of happiness as opposed to a true reflection of how happy we are. So reality about what happiness is and the experiences that we can have is really, really important, as it turns out. So when I talk to people about what it is, what their habits are, the mistakes that they've made, then they will retrospectively start to understand their own past in a different way. And by the way, you can edit your past, because when you understand your past in reality, it can turn out that like, oh yeah, no, I hate Thanksgiving. Why do you hate Thanksgiving? Well, you know, I had all these experiences when I was a kid. My mother was always crying in Thanksgiving. And well, let's go back and talk about what was really going on in Thanksgiving. And you edit your past, you remember things in a different way. The episodic memories are actually stored in the hippocampus of the brain, and you reassemble them de novo every time you think about it, and you reassemble them in a different way with new knowledge. You're editing your past in a more accurate way than you've done it, and then you can actually start to get different answers on those types of questions.
So that would be like you would go back to those Thanksgivings and say, you know, mom was really stressed because she was struggling with this, and she cried, but she always tried to hide it from us. And so like she was actually looking out for us on Thanksgiving.
And mom was awesome. And so you go back and you think not about Thanksgiving as a source of bitter memories, but one of sadness about what your mom was going through because you loved your mom. And that's an entirely different framing. And it's probably more accurate, as a matter of fact, because you're looking at your mom with some empathy, as opposed to looking back on how it was, you know, little Cody, it was mom. And, you know, it's really interesting because once you reframe it with respect to the suffering that other people are having, as opposed to the suffering that you remember, that's a really, really important edit that almost everybody can engage in. And again, that's been largely overlooked by the therapy industrial complex that wants you to relive your trauma. No. You need to reframe and understand your trauma, understanding that you probably weren't the person who was suffering the most. This can then stimulate the compassion that is at the core of your soul, making you a happier person and a better person today.
So when we're going back and looking at our trauma, are we often turning ourselves into a victim?
Yeah, happens all the time. Absolutely, because you're reliving it, and you're being encouraged to actually be resentful about it. And I mean, I get it. I get it. That's a normal thing to do, but that's not really a very healthy thing to do at all.
It's so interesting. We're going to make this about me. This is my therapy session with Arthur
You
today.
got it. That's so good.
This is great. But it's funny because we had a therapist that we've been using for a while. And I felt like we were doing a decent amount of that. We were going back to a thing. And then we were being asked, how do we feel? How does that feel in our body? How did we feel about that? How did we feel at that time? And at some point I was just like, listen, we're kind of having the same issues. We're having these same situations. Nothing's changing. Why the fuck do we keep doing the same thing if it's not actually making any change? That seems unreasonable. But I'd never thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Instead, could we go back and instead of saying like, this was so sad that this happened, what other story could we tell ourselves about that?
Yeah.
Because
And what's
you don't
more
get
accurate.
and you
right?
don't get a medal for being the biggest victim, you know?
Right. If you, generally speaking, when you think about a past that's difficult for you and you go back and review it, do it where you're not the star. Don't be the star of your trauma. Go back and look at the other people who are involved and actually think compassionately about the suffering of the other players in that drama. And in so doing, you'll get out of the psychodrama. The psychodrama is so deleterious because it's just so boring. And me. I'm telling you, it's so hard to get out of. I starred in all my dreams last night. It was so boring and tedious.
It is true.
And you can actually, you have the privilege of being able to go back and reconstruct the psychodrama in a way where you didn't have a starring role, where you had a role as somebody who was watching and somebody who now, with the wisdom of the years, is understanding it in a particularly different way. And it's just, it can really change your life a lot.
Oof. You've actually been around and friends with a bunch of famous people, celebrities, presidents, Oprah. Does fame make you happy or unhappy?
Fame is one of the four, according to Aristotle vis-a-vis St. Thomas Aquinas, there are four idols, and everybody falls prey to one of these idols. St. Thomas Aquinas was an incredible social scientist before his time. These idols, in other words, according to him, were substitutes for God, but have divine characteristics. And people use them even though they're idolatrous because religion is inconvenient, lots of rules, many one-sided conversations, so it seems. And so people will fall prey to their idol. And the four idols are money, power, pleasure, and fame. Those are the four idols. It's an almost exhaustive list. And fame can mean prestige. It can mean admiration. It can be very local. I want to be well known among these people, right? In academia, it's always wanting to be known as the expert in your field. They don't care. You don't want to be internet famous if you're in the sociology department at Harvard. But you want all the sociologists at the American Sociological Association to think you're big cheese. So money, power, pleasure, and fame. Fame is the only one of those you can only ever be happy in spite of. Now, this is important, right? Because you have a biological imperative to get more notoriety. You want more people in the caves around you to know who you are as opposed to you knowing who they are, because then you're going to be higher. That means you're higher in the hierarchy of a kin-based society. We are a tropical kin-based hierarchical species, Homo sapiens. We still are. We can get beyond the tropical part because we invented coats. But man, we're not going to get above the tribal part, the hierarchical part, the kin-based part. And so we want to rise in the hierarchy. There's a natural imperative to rise in the hierarchy. You want to do that. That's why you have two cars instead of one, and a flashier watch than you need, and all this stuff. You want to peacock in a particular way. You spend more time in the gym than you would need to otherwise because you want to rise in the hierarchy. Whether you admit it to yourself or not, that's what's going on. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, because then when you outstrip the number of people who could know who you are, because we live in the world of the internet, when millions of people are going to know who you are, you're going to be like, I love that. That feels so awesome, but I'm so empty and cry myself to sleep. What's that all about? And what's going on is that you're mismatched with your evolutionary tendencies and the technological reality that we live in. That's why Lady Gaga says that fame is prison, and that John Milton says that it leads us to live laborious days. It's because you want it, but it makes you miserable. Bottom line. And it only very well-adjusted people can cope with it. Oprah Winfrey is one of them, by the way. She's one of the only people I've met in all of my work, and I deal with a lot of people who are very much in the public eye, who is exactly the same person in public as she is in private. Exactly. So when we're on tour and we're in front of thousands of people, or when it's just me and Oprah at her dinner table in Montecito, California, it's the same person.
Same.
Because she understands fame, she understands the purpose of fame, and she's not distorted by fame. But it's very unusual.
So do you think that you can't be happy and chase after the four idols?
So to chase after the four idols, it depends on what we mean by that. But if that's your goal, you won't be happy. If that's your final goal. All money, power, and pleasure and fame are intermediate goals so that you can do more important things. There's nothing wrong with money. I got nothing against money. But if money is your goal, you're going to be unhappy. If I'm going to make money because I want to do this, that, and the other thing, fine, now I'm listening, right? I want pleasure because I want to add it to people in memory and make it enjoyment, and that's part of happiness in my life. I want power, not per se, but because with power I can do these wonderful things. So for example, you wouldn't say power, but you'd say, I want the influence that actually comes from being a decision maker by being the mayor of Austin, or something like that. And you can say, okay, you want to be mayor of Austin. You want power. Why? Because I want to do this and this and this and this and this and help people in their lives. And fame is I want the people who can use this, and Oprah Winfrey is in this group, but others too, George W. Bush, people that I know who are great human beings. It's like that admiration. Humans are mimetic. They mimic other people. And with the notoriety that I have, I can refract these people into a better life. If they see me and they admire me and they follow me, and I'm doing good things for my community, I'm living an upright life, I'm following the Lord, whatever your thing is, and they do that because of the admiration they have for you, dynamite. Dynamite.
Interesting. I guess it's a tool versus a trophy. How do you see it?
Yeah. It's never more than an intermediate goal if you want to be a happy person.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And I think, I've seen it. We were just talking about the book, right? And I hit the New York Times bestseller. And I remember one of my employees, Lindsay, who's like a lovely human. She would be, what are your archetypes again that you have at arthurbooks.com?
Oh, the archetypes of the affect profiles, the mad scientist, the cheerleader, the poet, and the judge.
She was a self-assigned cheerleader. And
high positive affect, low negative affect.
Right.
Which is to say high positive mood, low negative mood.
Right.
Intensity.
That's Lindsay. And anyway, so she asked when we hit the New York Times, she was like, she came down very excited. She was like, how do you feel? And I was like, zero different. I feel absolutely nothing inside one way or the other. The only thing that I thought was interesting is then maybe the mission gets out. And then I did have like a moment where I was like, that's fucking cool.
Awesome.
Like I get to say I'm a New York Times bestselling author. That's kind of...
Because you're that forever.
That's cool. Yeah, I guess going back to the longevity of a thing.
Yeah, that's it.
So there was a moment. So, if I'm honest, even in the things we do, there's definitely part of it that is so short-term, endorphin chasing, really fun.
Right.
But then I hope there's something a little bit bigger with it, which is kind of why when we talk about our company here, I have never really liked the idea of us just teaching people how to get money and finance.
Right.
Because, man, then, what kind of tool are we giving people to do what with?
Right.
That's like handing out AK-47s and not doing anything to protect maybe how people might use them one way or the other.
Correct.
But it's interesting to think that way. Okay, I want to close out with maybe one last question, which is, let's try it on for size for a second. Is there any way for money to buy you happiness?
Does money buy happiness? The eternal question. And everybody knows the conventional answer, which is no. And everybody knows the conventional response, which is let me find out. Right?
Exactly.
So first you have to ask yourself, why is it that everybody knows it won't, but they still want to try it and they can't stop themselves? And that has everything to do with the accumulation of resources. This is what gets us back to evolution. I want more money than I need because in showing that I have more resources than is necessary for me, I'm going to attract mates. And I'm more likely to survive the winter. I can store up more, buffalo jerky and animal skins and flints in my cave, and that's going to get me more mates, and I'm going to be able to survive the winter. And isn't that great? That's the reason you want excess resources. That's why you want 5 watches instead of 1. That's really, really what it comes down to. Now, we know, because we listen to grandma, and we kind of know that 5th watch, it's sort of awesome, but then you're going to kind of forget about it, and you're going to keep running and running and running and running. And that's a real source of frustration that people have. But there are ways to buy happiness. Now, to begin with, more money early on, and there's a bunch of studies on this that shows that when you have more money when you're poor, then your well-being does rise. And the reason is not because of happiness, it's because it lowers unhappiness. So early on, if you're, and we all, when we were, almost all of us, everybody listening to us, when you're really young and you really lack resources. I mean, I went 6 years with no health care as a young man. And it was, I didn't go to the dentist from 19 to 25. And then when I went to the dentist at 25, he filled 12 cavities, and I felt a lot better.
Oh my God.
So you can say money bought happiness, but it didn't. Money lowered the source of unhappiness. And in my brain, I put 2 and 2 together and said, more money, feel better. And so you chase that the rest of your life. That's one of the reasons that you keep doing that, is habitual behavior on the basis of these patterns that we make. But there are ways, it turns out, that you can get higher well-being at any phase of life with money. And just don't do the one thing that you want to do. So there's 5 things you can do with money, okay? This is a very much a Codie Sanchez part of the conversation, isn't it? Number 1, you can buy stuff, right? We've already talked about that. Number 2, you can buy experiences. Number 3, you can buy time. Number 4, you can give it away. And number 5, you can save it. Those are the exhaustive possibilities of what you can do with money. 2 through 5 bring happiness. 1 doesn't. 1 is what you biologically have an imperative to do, is to go accumulate stuff, more of everything that shows that you're a successful person to yourself. However, if you buy experiences and experience these things with people that you love, you get happier, right? If you buy time and don't fritter it away, that you use it for your own edification or for the relationships in your life, you get happier. If you give your money to things that you're really passionate about, you get happier. And if you save your money, you get way happier. Saving money is one of the ways that you can buy happiness. Now, again, you can get to a certain point where you have, $10 billion and you're a miser, and that's not what I'm talking about. But conversely, by the way, spending money that you don't have on consumption, running up your credit card to buy, to pay for your vacation, that is one of the best ways to get unhappier, because you're not making progress. You're making regress, and all of human happiness comes from progress. Savings feels like progress. Debt is terrible for happiness, except for mortgages.
Interesting.
Because mortgages actually make a little bit more progress in owning your home than rent. But that doesn't count as debt.
Do you think that's why the Bible and so many religious books say that debt is bad?
Yeah, well, they say debt is bad because there were injunctions, religious injunctions against usury. And part of the reason for that is in biblical times, if you lent money at interest, the interest rate would be about 80%. And so it was extremely exploitative. It was only in the modern sort of Anglo-Saxon system of finance, only in the past 500 years have interest rates become non-usurious, have become non-exploitative. So the idea of the 5% interest rate was unthinkable in biblical times. And so that's more why they're talking about it. It really is to subjugate somebody else, is to lend money at interest in those times.
Interesting. So everything was like a high interest loan shark.
It was all the mafia, basically. And people who did that were people who were preying on people who were so desperate they would take an 80% loan. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really, really what they're talking about. They weren't talking about, I think I'll actually buy the hut next door and rent it out, and I think it's a good rental property. Or as you would talk about, it's like I'm going to go get a laundromat.
That was not on the docket.
Vending machines, yeah. So that's not what they were talking about in those circumstances.
Also, we need to talk about your 12 different cavities while you're drinking Diet Coke.
I know. Well, I mean,
is this your one vice?
Yeah, I'm a pretty ascetic character. I don't drink alcohol. I don't run around. I don't stay out late.
You look pretty jacked. You look like you're getting fit.
I've been working out every day for 30 years.
The Harvard professor with biceps.
I'm trying to stay alive, Cody.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's good for the pursuit of academic excellence. The last thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about this earlier in it too when I give your little intro, because I think you are one of the most beautiful writers that I've ever read.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
That's
remember.
kind of you. I appreciate that a lot.
It's true. Speakers and writers. I remember when I first read one of your columns. This was at the New Yorker, right?
No, the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. I
Yeah.
always mess those two up.
Yeah.
And how you would take a subject that was really, really, I don't know, something I would never imagine talking about, such as, let's say, Hegel, right? And you would talk about it in a way that was so moving, but also easy to understand. Complex topics really simplified in a way that you want to get lost in a philosophy newsletter, which would be hard. Now you have a new newsletter
Right.
that's more accessible for everybody
Right.
at arthurbrooks.com.
Yeah, exactly right.
Tell me about one of your favorite articles that you've written lately, and then everybody should go and sign up. I don't say that often, not like we need more emails, but
Right.
this one is beautiful, as is all your writing.
Thanks. I appreciate that an awful lot. It means a lot to me that you say that, because that's why I'm doing the writing, is because I want people to have a good experience when they're reading it, to learn a lot, but also to get some pleasure from it. Interest is one of the basic positive human emotions. People are always looking to learn something, but if learning is unpleasant because it's too impenetrable in language, for example, then it takes away the positive emotion. As a happiness guy, it's very important that people enjoy reading my words.
Yeah.
Or listening to my words, for that matter. That's one of the reasons I take such care in thinking about it this way. Every week in my newsletter, it comes out at 9 o'clock Monday morning, I talk about something that somebody has written to me to ask. And, I get, like I get 12 or 15 emails a day from people who, they have real questions from different walks of life. So I'm talking about real issues based on problems that we can then turn into opportunities to get happier, to get better, to have more love in our lives, to be healthier and more fulfilled. And so last week, for example, I've been thinking about this an awful lot, is my own tendency to fall into suboptimal patterns of work. I love my work, which is great. But the truth is that and I don't even believe in work-life balance. Work-life balance is complete nonsense, because it suggests that work is not part of your life. There's a separation between your work and your life. Your work should be part of your life. That should be work-life integration. But when work takes over, because it becomes such an obsession, something you're thinking about day and night, it can become really unhealthy, because it starts to displace your love relationships. It becomes the relationship per se. So talking about work as a relationship is what I was talking about. And that's the essence of workaholism, a secondary addiction to the success addiction that many strivers feel. People who follow your work, they're all strivers. If you're not a striver, you're not going to read your books and not going to be following your podcast. But the result of that, it can turn into a pathology in which we objectify ourselves. And I talk a lot about the psychology, even the neuroscience of what goes into that. And then to start seeing how other parts of your life can be developed, to make progress in those other parts of your life that will then cross-fertilize what you're actually trying to do with your work, so you can become a happier person and a more effective person. So the big techniques for doing that, it's just what I've written about. And it's an example of what that newsletter is all about in, between 300 and 500 words.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, you guys should all go subscribe. Arthur Brooks on all the socials. I listen to you a lot on Instagram, and certainly your newsletter. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cody. Congratulations on the bestseller. I know you don't care, but still it's kind of cool.
No, I care. I can't pretend I'm that cool. I just, sometimes you think you're going to get it, and then you'll feel something like I'm like,
I know.
Lindsay, she had this camera in front of my face. She's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I feel nothing inside. I don't really, am I dead inside? What happened? And that was a weird phenomenon for me.
I know. And part of the problem is that there's a ratchet to it. You're like, was it number one?
How do you know me so well?
Of course, because that's how humans are
Jordan
wired.
Peterson beat me out that week.
Jordan Peterson beat you. You were number 2?
Yeah.
Well,
actually, we were number maybe 3 or 4, because number 3 was Snoop Dogg. So I got beat by Jordan Peterson, Snoop, and I was like, you know what? If we got to lose to a couple people, I'll take this too.
It's phenomenal that your first shot out of the cannon and you're getting in the top 5 of the New York Times bestseller list. I tell you, that's very unusual. But here's the best news: now you got room to grow in book 2.
Yeah, don't say that. Now I'm gonna get back on my not hot hedonic treadmill, but I'm gonna get back on the hedonic treadmill, and I'm gonna be motoring for book 2.
Yeah, I know. And then you'll just be ratcheted up completely in this state of.
And then I'll have to listen to your newsletter about how to chill the fuck out.
Exactly right. And then if it doesn't beat the next book, It'll be really disappointing, and it will teach you a very important life lesson. Oh, God. And then you'll say something like, yeah, but the right people read it.
Exactly. I will say that. I will have a lot of self-rationalization, which I'm excellent at.
I've been an author for many years. I have this library of rationalizations.
Listen, that's how we keep going and doing the unreasonable thing.
Exactly right. You got to get from one end of the day to another.
That's right. Okay, I want to do something we've never done before.
Okay.
We're going to give you a postcard.
Okay.
This is something new. And on the postcard, we want you to write a little message to young Arthur Brooks. What would you share with him today that you don't mind sharing on the internet, because we're going to have you read it afterwards, so don't tell us your social security number. But maybe something that you can take a few minutes to think about before we share with all our readers. We'll let you have a few minutes to write it, however long you need, and then you just open the door when you're done. Deal?
Deal.
All right. Arthur, back to you.
So I thought about, the patterns of my behavior over the course of my life. And I'm not young. I feel young. I feel your age, but I'm not. I'm 60 years old, so I've seen a whole lot. And I look at the good things that have happened, and I look at the pathologies, and I think back to what could I have told myself when I was, early on in my career, for example. I started my career at 19 when I dropped out of college and became a professional classical musician. And I was a real striver. I was practicing. From the time I was 9 years old, I was practicing many hours a day, and I wanted to be the #1 French horn player in the world all the way through my 20s. And then when that didn't work out, I left and I went to college in my late 20s and then graduate school, and then I wanted to be the #1 researcher in my field and to get tenure earlier than absolutely anybody else. And then when I left that, I became the president of a think tank in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to raise more money than anybody ever had and have the #1 think tank in the world. You see a pattern developing.
And you did both of those too.
And the one thing that I missed, that I wished I had known, so that I could have been a happier person, but a person that had more equilibrated relationships, and I could have made life a lot easier on my wife and the people who love me if I had known one thing, which is that my worth as a person is not related to my level of accomplishment in the world. Fundamentally, for whatever reason, and this is certainly not my parents' fault, but this is the pathology of the striver and a lot of people who are watching us, is this belief that I'm not lovable unless I'm admirable. Unless I'm doing something that people actually admire, then there's no reason to love me. And this has deep metaphysical roots. People who believe this often will believe that God can't love me unless I'm good enough, unless I'm virtuous enough. That my wife can't love me unless I'm an abundant enough provider. That I can't really have any friends unless it's on the basis of their admiration for me as a person because of what I'm actually doing in the world. And that's just not right. That wasn't right for me. It wasn't right then. It isn't right now. And I would have been a fundamentally happier person had I understood that. Would I have done the same things? No. But I think I could have been a better husband. I certainly would have been a more present father than the one who kept working that 14th hour instead of the first hour with my kids. And I think that today I would have a perspective on life that I could use that would be firsthand really helpful to others as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Cody.
John, just give me, okay.
Welcome back to the Big Deal Podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. And I found out something fascinating the other day, which is that 87% of you guys, people who watch our episodes, are not subscribed to this channel. So I have an ask for you all. If you could subscribe to the channel, this is the way that we grow. We can have bigger guests. We can hire the right team members. And it's only really through you guys doing this one simple thing. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, can I ask you a favor this week? Can you hit that subscribe button? Thank you. Truly, we can't do this without you. You've built sleeper businesses basically as a career, it feels like, crazy side hustles, then grew them into actual companies. These are cash flow producing, non-venture backed companies. Almost anybody could start if they were willing to take the risk and do the hard thing of actually working them. Is there one that you're currently obsessed with now? Or is there a business that you're obsessed with at the moment?
Man, it's like asking which kid is my favorite. I just love business. So Okay, so I was in Cameron, Missouri last week. Population 8,000 people. I pull into this hardware store and I see this cute couple, 30s, kids out by the road selling pizzas, right? I have like an outdoor kitchen with an authentic pizza oven. I geek out over it. So I had to talk to these guys. They've got like a $700 pizza oven, a $100 like a pop-up canopy, and they're just slinging these authentic pizzas. And so I'm like, how much money are you making here? And $700 a day. Their kids make the pizzas, they wave signs, and I said, well, what do you pay? They're in the parking lot of a hardware store. What do you pay to be here? Well, nothing. Like, they just hope that we can bring them customers and they bring us customers. This is like middle of nowhere, middle America, right? Like, and they're making $700 a day, 80% margins, selling pizzas from an oven that they bought at Home Depot, right? Like, I just love stuff like that because who couldn't do that? Like, who couldn't do that business if they really had to make some money?
Isn't that wild? And if you just like, for people who aren't, who are public school math kids like me, I mean, if you take, let's round it to 1,000 times 30 days in a month, we're talking about that's a $30,000 a month business.
Yeah.
If you have 80% margins, we're talking about you're taking home a top 1% level salary, $200,000+.
But how many people in Cameron, Missouri are saying, oh, there's just no opportunities here?
I know. You know what else kills me that I think you prove a lot and is like one of the missions of this company? It's like your shirt. You can just do things. And in fact, I think you'll be shocked by how often people don't charge you.
Yeah.
Like we did this whole experiment with vending machines where we put vending machines in a bunch of different locations. And then we did videos about them and shared the numbers. And everybody was like, you left out the rent. I'm like, I didn't pay rent.
Yeah.
I know that you can theoretically, and you might have to sometimes, but like, I just didn't in this case. And so I love that story. I was curious for you, is there one business that you've seen like ever that you're just like, this business is such a sleeper and almost anybody could start it?
So a year ago, we own a tree trimming business, right? And tree trimming businesses are great. I call it a binary outcome, right? The customer needs a tree gone. You show up, the tree's gone, 5-star review, invoice paid, right? Whereas other businesses, it's just like custom home building. It's not. There's so much that could go wrong. But stump grinding is kind of a pain in tree trimming because, if you're a tree trimmer, you got a truck with a chainsaw, and if you got to grind the stump, it's like, I got to go to the rental place, put it on my trailer, gas it up, pay $300 to rent it, charge $300 to grind it. It's just a pain. So I was talking with my business partner about this, and we thought, I bet there's a world where you could be a business-to-business stump grinding business. And that wasn't really a thing, right? So we were just riffing on this on my podcast, and as an experiment, because I'm curious and I have to get my questions answered, right? So I scraped every tree trimming business in Houston, and I'm in Dallas. And so I wanted like a sister city that was comparable. And I hired a virtual assistant to call up every tree trimming business and say, hey, who grinds your stumps? Do you own a stump grinder? Do you rent them? Theoretically, if you could ever outsource that entirely to a stump grinding business that only served tree trimming businesses, would you do it? If so, what would you pay? And the results were incredible. Like 20% of these tree trimmers would love to outsource it. And so we were just talking about this, and people went out and started business-to-business stump grinding businesses based on this theory and research. And this one guy made $300,000 his first year. And he rented the thing, and he rented the trailer, and he wasn't wealthy, but he's making like 60-70% margins grinding stumps for these tree trimming businesses.
I love it. Well, boring businesses that's my love language.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting is two things. One, it doesn't take that much to get the research, right? You literally just cold called, or in this case, because you have an assistant, had somebody else cold call a bunch of people and ask them 3 or 4 questions. And the other case of the pizza company, you just were willing to do the thing most people won't, which is, how much revenue do you make a day?
Yeah.
Like, how often do people not give you the answer to that question? I'd be curious.
Rarely, honestly.
Right?
You just have to ask.
I would say it's like 95% of the time they tell you. And why? Because they're proud of it.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever ran a business and you know what it feels like to actually get somebody to pay you for your service, how hard it is.
Yeah.
You want to tell people.
Yeah.
I am old now, and so my back has been hurting, which is so on par. And so I go to this PT.
And he was telling me a story about his background. And I'm like, that's incredible. And I started telling him the number, like percentage of percentage of businesses that actually hit 100,000, then 1 million, then 10 million a year. It's kind of rare, actually. And so he was like, can I tell you my revenue number? And I was like, yeah, tell me, what is it? He's like, 310,000. I'm like, that's amazing because you don't have any employees either, right? So he's got an 80% margin business.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Now with your tree trimming business, when did you start that?
2 years ago.
And how much cash did you have to start it with?
I had cash to start it with, but I grew up poor, right? And so I always like to say constraints equal creativity. And I've never been VC funded. I've tried to raise money. It's a lot harder than people think. And so I've been forced to be creative, right? And that's never left me. Now to this day, like I can afford to do certain things, but I'm so cheap and or willing to be creative that I don't have to. So with the tree trimming business, I had a truck. I found a young, hungry entrepreneur that had just graduated from college. And I knew how to start it because I had helped a friend do it as a favor a couple of years prior. And so we didn't own a chainsaw. We still don't own a chainsaw. We just found subcontractors and subbed it all out to them. And so
can you explain what that is, subcontractors, if people don't know?
Yeah. So we just found tree trimming businesses that did the work themselves. And we just said, hey, we're going to quote $1,600 for this. What would you quote? $800. Okay, cool. We're just going to mark up all of your quotes to us 100%. And we'll take that margin. We'll bring you jobs. We'll keep you busy. Cool.
Yeah, that's wild. And now how big is that business? Do you share the revenue numbers?
Yeah. I mean, we're doing $500,000 a year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And this is you and a kid who was in college?
Yeah, he's the operating partner.
And how old is he now?
He's 23.
Wow.
Yeah, he had no experience in the industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you think, like, what's the formula? So let's say somebody right now has no money or they've lost all their money and they want to go out and start a business. What is the formula that you need to be able to have a cash flowing business that you start?
Yeah. Well, you can't have no money and pride. That doesn't work, right? So you have to be willing to work and you have to be humble enough to go like ask people for things or to go sell. If you have pride and you're broke at the same time, I don't know what to do for you, right? So the formula is to be curious about the world and to answer those questions you have about these potential opportunities immediately, right? You're familiar with habit stacking, right? If we want to do 20 push-ups every morning, we should probably do it right after we brush our teeth because pairing those two habits together makes us more likely to do it. So I'm only kind of connecting the dots looking back. I didn't do this intentionally, but as I look back on why I've started so many things, it's because I genuinely love commerce, business, entrepreneurship. And so I'll go to a restaurant and wonder, man, how much are these guys doing? And then I'll answer that question immediately. I pair the habit of getting the question with the habit of answering it. And then that kind of trains me to act, to have a bias for action. And then if you stack that up over years, you end yourself having started 75 businesses, and it can get a little stressful, but it's very fun.
That's okay. You could kill some babies, right?
Yeah.
Or sell them. That's my preferred method.
That's right.
God, I've started and bought so many businesses. And it's why we stopped saying how many businesses we own. Because I'm like, if I say 30 today, I know that 2 of those businesses I'm probably going to sell.
Yep.
I might close another one. And it started to feel like not very authentic.
Yeah.
And then also, it's not always a good thing to own 26 businesses.
Yeah.
It's probably better to own 1 or 3 that are way bigger
Yeah, I agree.
than 26. So I was like, people think it's cool. I'm like, man, something's always going wrong. So it's not, just start with 1, just 1. So if, in that instance, I'm sort of curious, like you started this business with this guy. How did the guy like show that he was competent enough to be your operator? So if like somebody young is watching this and they're like, man, I want to go pitch Chris or Cody or whatever rich person I know on a business to start.
Yep.
What do I have to present in order for you to say, I'm going to give you 50% of this company?
Yeah. I kind of regret what I'm about to say, but it's the truth. So I've noticed a direct correlation, you probably have too, between the people that have just gone all out to get my attention and then their performance after I hire them or partner with them, right? Whereas some reach out kind of half-heartedly.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I've hired them in the past and it was just, they kind of did a half-hearted job. But the people that are like, just blowing me up everywhere. Like, I will do this. I will do this. Like, I promise I'll be your hardest worker. I don't know anything. I'm humble, but I'm willing to do all the work. That was James. He had never had a home service business. He had like flipped iPhones on Facebook Marketplace, but he was just hungry. And so I like to look for humility, gratitude, someone who's like, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, and some sort of an entrepreneurial gene, right? Because I don't want to make them entrepreneurial. They have to have that. If they have those three things, then it's almost 100% certain they'll be successful.
Yeah, I always loved the Munger quote where he says, if you're going to have a mistress, pick an old one because she'll be grateful for it. And I think that it's true of business partners too. He used to, describe Buffett as the best thing that we have in our partnership is we're both grateful for it. I think that's true in marriage. It's true in business.
Absolutely.
And so if you could optimize for intelligence, history, sophistication, or hunger and gratitude, go left, not right. Love that. Okay, so let's say that there's somebody listening who has zero time on their hands. Maybe they actually have money, but they don't have time. What business would you tell them to do, or what would you tell them to start?
That's a good question. I would say that they should start liquidating things. Buying things from like Costco Overstock. There's a half a dozen websites out there that sell pallets of returned items, defective items, or items that might be perfect. You just don't know. Like you could buy a pallet full of Blackstone grills for $100, right? And so someone like that has some money to buy stuff like that, and it doesn't have a lot of time. They can start by selling a few things on the side, learning how it all works, and then partnering with someone like James, my business partner in the tree business, to do it for him. But I think it's very important that you don't outsource things too quickly. You really got to get in the weeds so you can recognize the weeds before you get out of the weeds, right?
Yeah, I do think it's really hard to hire well until you've done well.
Yeah.
And so first do good, then hire good. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, and you kind of have highlighted all these different businesses. I want to go over some of the best in the works. We actually took one of your ideas off of Twitter. We didn't give you enough credit for it. So we got an internet duel. But and we did it here in the office.
Yeah.
And we basically, the idea was, can you buy things off Facebook Marketplace and have AI do everything for you? And my too long didn't read at the end was like, no, like you got to, there's some human
Still
in the
early.
loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for people who are entrepreneurs and hungry, I think both you and I, it was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Like once you start to play the game, you realize just that 20% off your stack is so valuable.
Yeah.
So if like right now you had to look at all the side hustles, all the businesses that exist, what do you think are the three best, most underrated side hustles?
Okay. All right. So you say right now, I'm going to take that literally. So we're in August, and I came across this woman last year who decorates porches with pumpkins. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, I saw it because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dallas chick, wasn't she?
Heather. We've since become friends. And she's making over $1 million a year just buying wholesale pumpkins from someone that anyone could Google and find a wholesale pumpkin supplier. Buys them by the truckload and decorates them on porches. And it's a beautiful business because it's so visual. If you put your iPhone on a tripod, put it on time lapse, post that to Instagram, the algorithm loves it, right? So there's all your customers. And that's what she's done. And she does an amazing job, and she's an amazingly hard worker. So I'm not downplaying, like, it's just a good idea. Anyone can do it. It's very profitable. She charges between $600 and $1,300 to decorate a porch with pumpkins. I'm a customer. My wife loves it. And I love this opportunity because you could start with almost nothing, an Instagram account, a little money for pumpkins, and then you could make it not seasonal. She prefers for it to be seasonal. She wants to be with her family during Christmas, but there are people that do this for Christmas decorations. I talked to a guy in Pennsylvania that does it for front porch flower decorations. He charges a few $100s a quarter, and he'll swap out flowers every month.
I'd pay for that.
Yeah, and he's in Long Island. This stuff would work anywhere. And it's very visual. It goes viral very naturally. That's one, because it's high margin, it's unique, and you don't need a lot of money to do it.
You know what the other thing about that one is? When you don't have a lot of money, you don't realize how much money other people have.
Yeah.
And that they want, like, the thing about rich people, they want to spend their money.
Yep.
And so I remember when I was broke and poor, the idea of some mom putting $1,300 to put pumpkins on their front yard in Dallas would be crazy. And then you drive in Highland Park and you're like, these bitches, they spend a lot more than $1,300, right?
Yeah.
Like Dallas decorations are another brand, but every state has city centers like that.
Yep.
So that's really smart. Okay, so first we're going front porch decoration.
All right, so I met this guy in Utah that this is a business you could literally start with no money. And I mean that. genuinely. As long as you have a friend with a truck or a trailer and you have some humility, like we talked about, he goes on Facebook Marketplace and he buys washers and dryers, or he'll get them for free because people give them away all the time. They're moving, their lease ends tomorrow, they got to get it out, right? And then he goes back to Facebook Marketplace and rents them out for $100 to $200 a month to people that live in apartments, that have hookups, that don't want to buy it because they're afraid it's going to break. He rents them out, and he's making 6 figures a year, working 5 hours a week. He has another company. He has an RV park. He's doing all kinds of stuff. This is just one of his businesses. But what's more approachable than that? Like, you're going to have to carry a washer upstairs. It's going to be hot. It's going to suck. You're going to have some that get stolen from you. But find me a business that doesn't have problems. Right? I'm still waiting for that one.
Find me a job that doesn't have problems. Let's go low level. Okay, I like it. What do we think about the third one? I like also that there's one that like women are going to do. You're probably not decorating pumpkins on a porch. Your wife might though.
Yeah.
And then your wife is probably not schlepping big machines.
Yep.
But you might.
Yep.
Okay, what's our third?
Okay, so HVAC companies. They have these service contracts, either commercial or residential, where they check in every 6 months, make sure everything is working. Part of that contract is they have to clean the coils on the outside of the units. That's just like a preventative maintenance. But that's a pain for them because you got to have water, you got to hook up water, you got to have chemicals, and it just doesn't go into their normal workflow. So this guy that I met, he owned a pressure washing company. He started doing that for HVAC companies and saying, I'll just do all your coil cleaning. And then he got a grocery store customer just by walking into the grocery store. Can I talk to the manager? Who does your coil cleaning? These guys, but they forget sometimes. They hate doing it. It's the worst part of their job. But that's another good framework, right? Find a business that does something, find the things that they hate doing, and just kind of unbundle that, right? So now this guy, his whole business is washing the coils outside of these grocery store HVAC units. And he says that he never loses a customer. It pays him, I think it's like $500,000-$600,000 a year in this random rural area that you would never think this opportunity exists. And he's like, this is my secret weapon. Like, and he's owned a bunch of businesses. He's like, this is the best business I've ever had.
That's so interesting. You know what else is true also? You go up the ladder of entrepreneurship. And so when somebody's like, that's a terrible business, which I hear sometimes. I'm like, maybe for you, if you're making $1 million a year and you're a software engineer, probably not a great business for you. But like one of my favorite businesses back in the day was a podcast production studio. I bought part of it. It was great. It was a service business. Actually, the podcast production was all remote. So it was just like you ship in the, video edits and they would edit for you, thumbnail, title, etc. So I owned part of that business. And then I sold it back to the owner at some point. People are like, why? If you're making a couple $100,000 a year in a business, why? It was just too small at that stage. And so, but for Jonathan, the guy who took it over, he still runs that business. He loves that business.
Yeah.
And he's really happy at the level. He actually doesn't want it to grow. He's like, $500K a year business, perfect. Like, I don't want anything else. And so I think people underestimate how there's like, not everybody has a size 10 shoe. You're probably
12 and a half.
What? You're tall. That's big.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird if you had a size 6,
Yeah, it'd be weird.
Yeah, I can't let the internet know that if that was the case. It would roast you. Okay, let's talk about worse businesses. So if you had no money again, or were just starting out, but we're going to save people decades of mistakes and hours, what are the businesses that you would never touch with a 10-foot pole?
I'm going to talk about binary outcomes again. Okay. So, oh man, I had a third-party logistics business once. And basically e-commerce brands would come to us and we would store their products in a warehouse, pick, pack, and ship them out for them, right? We were doing $400,000 a month and not making any money. It was a miserable business because it did not have binary outcomes. So the business owner, our customer, was like so emotionally invested in his inventory. Hey, I did that big sale. Why haven't they shipped yet? Hey, these went to the wrong address. Hey, my inventory went stale because maybe it was food. Aren't you keeping track of these expiration dates? There were hundreds of things that could go wrong. And literally, if you click the wrong thing, you could ship 3,000 packages to 3,000 wrong homes. Ask me how I learned that, right? And those aren't our packages, which makes it even worse, right? Yeah. So we were making all this money top line, with no profit, losing money, right? It was not a binary outcome. It's not a simple business. We were competing with like Amazon. Who's going to do that? So anything, like I've started 75, 80 businesses. The common thread between all of them are just non-binary outcomes. Too complex, not simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So worst is 3PL. What's your second and third?
Oh man, house cleaning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why house cleaning?
It was just a lot of ways to screw up. It was,
I guess same thing.
yeah. And like, there's a hair, you left a hair on the floor.
Oof.
Or you scuffed the baseboard. No, we didn't. That was there first. Like, all for $150, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there are businesses where that stuff is worth it, right? Where like those headaches are worth it. But if it's low ticket and complex, stay away.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. What's the third?
Custom home building.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever do that?
Yeah. Well, I had a business partner that was a custom home builder, and he branched off, and we started starting one together, and that was like headache to the extreme, right? On one hand, you have a homeowner that's putting their life savings in something that they're going to live in forever. Mm-hmm. These were nice homes. And on our side, we had permit issues, weather issues, subcontractor issues, insurance issues, so many things that could go wrong. And I've built a custom home for myself. I've been on both sides of it. Stay away. Like, high ticket, but even at like $1 million home, it's just not worth it.
What price point home do you think it starts becoming worth it?
Multiple millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's almost the secret in every business, is that if you're not, it's not if you're not good, but like, you have to have enough margin in the business to be able to deal with all of the headache from mistakes.
Yes.
And like, more margin, more you can handle mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, all right, you pay me enough for that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, because I have a couple of friends that are custom home builders, but they're at the $10 to $12 million mark. And at that amount, you're making millions of dollars on every home. You're like, sure, Nancy, the tile's wrong. Ship it back to Italy. No problem, right?
Because your margin affords it. Yeah.
Right. But if you're doing it on $1 million home, which to young Codie, I'd be like, that's so much money.
Yep.
Not in home building, it's not. So you actually can't get compensated enough for that. And that's the real magic of entrepreneurship, is getting enough reps where you can kind of just look at a business and go, oh, that's not going to work that way.
Yep.
And the only way to do that is just to get in the game, right?
Yeah, you got to, and stay in the game.
Yeah, and keep playing it. The richest people in the world didn't just build, they bought. They didn't come from riches. They used other people's money and a ridiculous amount of sweat. People will tell you you can't. Yet didn't you know there isn't a multi-billion-dollar business out there that didn't do some type of acquisition? Amazon, 110 companies bought. Facebook, 96. The Sage of Omaha himself started buying a gumball route. They didn't listen to those who said they couldn't. They found aging owners, made connections, took risk, repeated. Today, the hardest thing to do isn't buy a company. It's start and keep a profitable business. Around here, we don't hope and pray for profits. We buy them. Real businesses, 56,000 of them, real profits, custom deal box so you can swipe left and right at your pleasure, maps find businesses close to you, off-market deals where no one else is even looking. This is how you become an owner.
They do billions of dollars a year from 50 locations, right? It's just an amazing business, privately held, and it's an amazing brand. It's like a Disney, right? They have a great brand. And so I went there 6 years ago, and I walked in and with my cousin, who's also a business nerd. And we were like, he said, he's like, do you know Disney sells like, I'm making this up, I don't remember the number, but like 15 billion a year of shirts. Yeah. I was like, I didn't know that. That's crazy. I wonder how much these guys sell online of their shirts. So we go to their website, and I distinctly remember there's no shop button. It's like, where do you buy these shirts? And these gas stations are in these far-flung rural areas. And so you can't get to it unless you're going down to the beach, right? And so that was just like a light bulb moment. And it was at this time that I was running that fulfillment business. And so we thought, wow, we need to get them as a customer. And instead of just like fulfilling their products, we're going to bring them online and fulfill their products. This could be a white whale for us, right? So I start reaching out to the executive team. No response. So we're like, what if we just try to get their attention by launching the business for them, and then just cold emailing reporters and saying, Buc-ee's won't answer us, so we're going to launch this business for them. Good. Yeah, and his first question is like, Chris, we're going to get sued. And I was like, that's going to be a good story though, right? If we get sued, then we can just say, okay, leave me alone. I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm done. But I was like, but what if we don't get sued? It could be a big business. It could be a big partnership. It could be tens of millions of dollars. Who knows? And so my business partner and I, we bought one of everything from the store near my house. It cost about $3,000. I hired a photographer for $200. We took pictures of everything in their store, put it on a website, cold emailed reporters and said, we want to get Buc-ee's attention. So we're selling everything that they own online for them. And they said, that's a great story. We had a dozen news outlets write about us, and we went viral and did $200,000 of sales in our first month. And we do millions of dollars a year now, 5 years later.
You're still doing it today?
Yeah. It's a great business.
I bet. So you're the one responsible for all the Buc-ee's merch I now see all over the country.
That's right. We don't have like an official partnership with them, but we have an understanding, and they support us. They help us buy it in bulk, but we just resell it. We go to one of their stores, we load up a box truck full of pallets, bring it back to our warehouse, and sell it online, ship it all over the world.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So you're not even actually their like licensed provider?
Nope.
That's so Texas. I
Yeah.
love that. They're
Very
like, yeah,
Texas.
fuck it. You're going to buy it at a full price. Go ahead, man.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I like doing things where like worst case is a good story,
Yeah.
because most people don't have good stories, right?
It's such a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Because that is the game of entrepreneurship.
Do it for the story. Someone put that on a t-shirt. Do it for the story.
Yeah. I think the kids say do it for the plot. I think that's
Sure.
what the Gen Zers say today. That's what my non-Gen Zers in this room say. But they, I think you're right. You know, a lot of times, I'm sure you get asked this question too. Well, I want to create content and be on the internet. So what do I talk about? I'm like, if you want to be interesting, you got to do interesting shit.
Yeah.
So before you get online and like try to talk about a bunch of stuff you haven't done, go do the thing.
Yeah.
Because you're not suffering from stories.
Right.
Why? Because you're
Yeah.
doing wild things
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, I'm trying really hard to get one of our portfolio companies, Pinks, and they're a window cleaning company.
Mm-hmm.
They have an incredible brand. And I'm trying to get them, I'm like, all the dudes are good looking, right? They're like good looking, young, wholesome guys. I'm like, we need a sudsy calendar. Like, I think
that's
it
a great
would
idea.
kill it. You know what I should
Yeah.
do their photos without their permission and put it on the
You
internet.
should. You should.
I'm going to say, Chris, maybe do it. But I laughed with them because, you know, we're moving into commercial. So they do a lot more commercial work now, but they do a lot of residential. And that usually goes through the lady of the house.
Yeah.
And there's this like idea of a cute pool boy that's already been created in the zeitgeist, right? You don't exactly go, God, my window cleaner was a real looker yesterday.
Yeah.
That's not like a thing. But with this company, you kind of do. So we've played into it slightly with the marketing, and it's funny and it's cute. And
Yeah.
most of these guys are like Christian, married, super wholesome, but they do it for the plot. They like don't take themselves that serious.
Yeah.
And so the two founders, you know, you have like, I don't know, 170 locations or something now. And their one business does $3 million a year, just like their Austin-based business. But they're doing kick flips and, you know, putting ridiculous thing in their Instagram because they don't have a lot of ego about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
They're not too precious, and they do it for the plot. Do it for the
That's so
story.
good.
All right, somebody make a shirt for Chris.
Do it. Yeah. Do
Yeah,
it for the
we'll wear it on the podcast. All right. Did you get into go? Tell me.
No, with the Pinks guys. I have an idea, so I got to get it out.
Tell me.
Yeah, so you should make those calendars.
Yeah.
because that would be viralable.
Wouldn't it?
Right? It would be
Okay,
so
thank
good.
you. I thought so.
And then you should take your whole customer database and find commonalities by the zip code of like what type of they probably already know this, but like our average customer has a $732,000 home. We charge $350 a quarter. That's $1,400 a year, and they stay for 5 years,
Yeah.
right? So $7,000 lifetime value, right? Okay, what would we pay to acquire that customer? Let's say $500. What does it cost to print and ship a calendar? Let's say $20. Okay, worst case. They should scrape all of the homes that fit that criteria, the demographic of the owner, the race, the gender, everything, and permissionlessly ship them that calendar for free.
Such a good
And
idea.
they're going to hang it, and they're going to look at that Pinks logo every time they see it.
And they're going to put it on Instagram.
And
They're going
gonna
to
put it on
tag
Instagram,
that everywhere.
and that $20 could return $20,000, right? Why wouldn't you do that?
100%. Well, that is the thing. You know, I think about it a lot here at this company because I'm in finance. So, you know, I bought companies, I sold companies. I never really thought about marketing. In finance, you don't do ads.
Yeah.
You don't market.
You can't really.
You can't. There's all these regulations about them. And if you do, you have to keep them for 7 years. It's kind of a crazy thing. And so now that we've come here, I've started to really appreciate that most marketing is so boring.
Yeah.
Is
it's
so
bad.
boring. And I get why, because it's embarrassing when you put your face on YouTube and you're making a stupid face and
Yeah.
you're like actually slightly more sophisticated, fingers crossed, than you are portrayed on the internet.
Yep.
You can have ego about that. Or you
Yeah.
can be like, do I want to look rich or do I want to be rich?
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
You got to make a choice, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like an extreme introvert. I don't like
No
going
way.
out. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
I'm posting these videos in the comfort of my own home, but going outside is like not for me. And so like the thought of short form videos was just like so foreign to me.
Interesting.
But there's a whole world on the other side of cringing at yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, like no one even cares.
Nobody cares.
Like the guy at church or your neighbor who sees that video of you talking about, he doesn't care. He's not thinking about you. No. So just do it.
Yeah. One of my best mentors ever told me there's somebody who is dumber than you are, has worse products than you are, isn't as good as you are, and they're making more money than you do because they're willing to sell.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, thanks, Bob. But he was right, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about, you just have so many stories. I want to run through a bunch of these companies, and hopefully for, if you're listening online, I think the thought is, like, take these as these little moments of inspiration, just like you did. You're like, oof, what about this? So it might not be that somebody's going to go pitch Buc-ee's and create a whole t-shirt empire, but it might be like right off of it, like slightly asymmetric,
Yeah.
So I want to talk about pet cremation because that's the obvious next thing you go
Uplifting
to.
topic. Yeah.
That's awful. My dog's here. Hide the dog.
It's so hot
from
right now,
Chris.
by the way.
Is it really?
Cremation, so hot. Right. I had to.
Is that a dad joke?
I have four
You have
kids. Yeah.
I love a dad
had
joke.
to.
Okay, let's talk pet cremation.
Okay.
What happened?
I had a friend that worked in private equity, and he had seen the inside of some deals, some pet cremation deals that looked really, really good. 92% gross margins. We have more puppies in the United States than children today. As of 2 years ago, like the line officially crossed. More puppies than kids, right? So extract from that what you will. But there's an opportunity there. Everyone bought puppies during COVID. Those puppies are 5 years old now. And unfortunately, they will die. And cremation is exploding in popularity. So I like to look for businesses that ride several tidal waves at once, several trends, right? And so you've got the puppy boom, you got people buying puppies, you have people preferring cremation for whatever reason, and then you have my friend that had an inside look into the industry. And so that same friend, luckily, also had a friend that was a veterinarian that owned a very high volume clinic. Like he did as much business as 6 clinics, right? And he was able to say, hey, if we start a pet cremation business, would you work with us instead of who you're currently working with? Sure. So we just kind of had that relationship. And so we started looking at these burners, and they're like $100,000 to $300,000 each. And then we thought, oh, man, I don't usually do that. I don't put hundreds of thousands into businesses, right? I'm scrappy. And so we thought, okay, well, what if we could just play middleman and just have a refrigerated van where we just play puppy logistics, if you will, okay? Pick up the puppies, puppy pickup, and then deliver them to the cremation facility that's already invested $500,000 into equipment because they want to be in the cremation business, not the logistics business. And that's one thing that we learned. We interviewed a few of them and say, what's the pain point in your business? Something we've already talked about. And they said, sales and logistics. What if we do both of those for you? My friend had another friend that had been acquiring veterinarian clinics. So he had contacts in the industry. So he said, all right, there's our sales. Here's our first customer that's worth 6 customers. Put the pieces together. Let's spend $15,000 on a refrigerated van, and we're in business. And so we capture a margin between the cremation facility and the veterinarian.
God, that's so smart. So it's almost like you see an opportunity in an industry and you go, okay, what's the most direct route? Okay, well, cremation. But then you say, my constraints are I want to spend less than $50,000. So if I can't get into that aspect for $50,000, where can I find just part of the business? So instead of taking everything from I'm going to get the lead for the puppy to I'm going to deliver the puppy to I'm going to cremate the puppy to I'm going to like have a certificate I give the family or whatever, I'm just going to take this step.
Yep.
And because I only take this step, it doesn't cost me all of this to start it. That's really clever.
Yeah.
It's like breaking down the business to the chunk you can afford.
Yeah. And the thing about that step that's a headache to them is if it's all you do, it's not a headache. Because all your systems are built around that one thing. So it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah. And so you're basically doing the opposite of what most companies do, which is like they might do vertical or horizontal integration where they go buy these things. You're saying, let me do the opposite. Let me remove a portion of somebody's business. I can build an entire stack on it. And then if I want to add on and compete more, I can.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I get to just start.
Yeah. And now what we can do is we can go the vet route and go into clinics and sell them. Or we can go to the cremation facilities and say, hey, I know what your margins are, because I know the business. What if you give us 30% of that margin and we'll take care of all of your headaches, right? So you can You can streamline your operations. You can net out ahead, even though your top line revenue comes down, and it'll be a win-win.
Yeah, I love that. Also, it's so much easier to start a business when you can sell to people who are already doing the thing that you want them to do. It's really hard to create an industry. Like, for instance, we try to talk people into this idea that we should not let these businesses die, that you should buy them, and that you should do it creatively. You shouldn't always have to go to the bank and be a millionaire to do it. It's not easy. It's hard. There's lots of components of it, but it's totally possible. The problem with that is you're like talking them into a change in lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's actually not a very good business. It's like more something that I just think we should do. But if instead you're going to a business owner, they already have the pain point. They already have the cash to solve it. All you're doing is removing work from them. Like, that's a really interesting model.
Yeah.
I typically don't think about businesses that way. So I like that.
Cool.
The funny part though about pet cremation, to your point on like people don't realize what people pay for. Like, what does it cost to get a pet cremated?
Oh, $250 to $500.
God, my dad's going to kill me for this story, but when my favorite dog died, he was obsessed with the dump truck. Like, you know how the trash truck, the dogs and shit. And so he died, and his name was Elvis. He was this amazing little Cocker Spaniel. And so, my dad told me, and so I came by the next day. I'm like, well, where's Elvis buried? What happened? And he's like, oh no, I took him to his favorite spot. And I'm like, what do you mean by that?
What does that mean?
Yeah. And he just put him in a bag and gave him to the dump truck. And I was like, I think that's illegal. I think that's right. He was like, he would be thrilled. He'd be barking happily all the way to the dump, his favorite
You're
place.
Just like staring into the abyss.
Oh, I just was. I know. It's such a, we're Latino. They don't understand things like cremating a dog for $500. That's like not part of the equation. Okay. Let's talk about RV parks. So I think a lot of people are interested in this idea of, I call them like low people businesses, vending machines, laundromats, car washes, RV parks. All of them have like a version of the business that could be low people. Then they have a very high people version of it. You own a bunch of RV parks and got into it. How did you get into that business? Break down the economics of it. What's most interesting about it?
Yeah. So, and I've done both ends of that. Small RV parks with no employees and large RV parks with a lot of employees. So I was buying single family homes back in college. And then I moved to Texas and I met some guys they owned hundreds of single family homes, but they had just been introduced to mobile home and RV parks. And they basically said, Chris, you've got to look at this. Instead of having 12 homes across a metroplex in 2 hours, you can have 12 homes all on the same 2 acres, and each one of them is more profitable than those, and it costs like a third as much as all of the single family homes. So you have the efficiencies of them being all right there. It's the lowest form of affordable housing, so it's recession resistant, and they're easier to manage. And you don't have to maintain the unit. The tenant owns the unit, so you just own the land. So I'm like, why do people even buy single family homes? I don't understand. Is this like the world's best kept secret? And so we partnered up and we started buying these small RV and mobile home parks across Texas and Oklahoma, 10 to 70 pad sites, no amenities, mostly long-term tenants, and where the tenants own either the RV or the mobile home, and we just maintain the infrastructure. And we did that for 2.5, 3 years.
What would each one cost you to buy those?
Yeah, so
parks?
Between $100,000 and $1.5 million.
Wow. And what kind of margins are you making on that? Like, how much money are you getting in your pocket from that?
It's like 30 to 60% cash on cash returns.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's insane.
Does that still exist today, or has a lot of that? It does.
No, it does.
Yeah, because a lot of people say those days are over.
Yeah.
You can't find X business like that, Y business like that. Is that true? And if it's not true, then why can you still find those? Why are people not buying them up?
So the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK has a quote that I love. And he says that as long as pianos weigh 800 pounds, we're going to be in business, right? And so as long as RV parks are ugly and forgotten and hard, or at least they seem to be hard, there's going to be an opportunity there.
Yeah.
I've been saying since 2018, since I've been in the business, like, oh, private equity, they're coming. And they're coming after the $10 million parks.
Yeah.
But private equity doesn't care about $100,000 or $1 million or $3 million park.
No.
So there's opportunity there.
Yeah, it's the same with buying businesses.
Yeah.
They literally, if you want to sell your $3 million business that has 30% margins, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's super hard. And now we know we own like the biggest, depending on how you do it, let's call it the second biggest behind business buy sell marketplace for small businesses. And man, there are so many good deals on there that nobody's buying.
Yeah.
And we're getting like 10 to 12 new listings every single week. And we've only been around for a year. And some of these businesses, it's like a business that does $160,000 in revenue a year. Let's call it $50,000 in profit. And they want to sell it for $50,000.
Yep.
So like, it's all around. What about, actually, let's do this really quick. So somebody's listening and they're like, I would love to own. Like, I would love to just feel like an owner of a business and buy a mobile home park for $100,000 to $200,000 and like get there. What would be the couple things you'd tell them? Don't buy mobile home parks unless you do this.
Oh, that's easy. Wastewater treatment plants. I don't know if most people never heard that phrase, but a lot of parks treat their own wastewater on site. And that is like major red flag. You could get shut down by the government, like stay far away. A lot of the best deals you'll see have those for that reason. So stay away from that. You want to think of a barbell. On one end of the barbell, you have no amenities. I did that 7 years ago. It was great. That means you don't have to have a manager. You could manage, one person remotely could manage a half a dozen parks, as long as he's on site every quarter or so. And then on the other end of the barbell, you have amenity rich. Pool, pickleball, horseshoes, you name it, water slides, everything. That's a great place to be. That's what I'm doing today. I'm a partner in a fund, and those are the parks we buy. Hundreds of pad sites near national and state parks. It's harder, but bigger, and bigger numbers, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be in the middle. If you buy a park with a pool and that's it, then your insurance is much higher. You need someone to be there, and they're only there for the pool. You don't want a kid to drown, right? Yeah. So you don't want to be in the messy middle, like either no amenities or all the amenities.
So you once started a crypto project with John McAfee, who is easily, I think, the most eccentric, paranoid, and wild entrepreneur, maybe of all times. He founded and sold McAfee antivirus software, investigated for murder in Belize, and later returned to the U.S. where he ran for president not once, but twice. I think there's a whole Netflix documentary about him. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So it was like 7 years ago, or 8, I don't know. But crypto was going crazy, and I was getting involved because I'm, always distracted. And I had kind of found this math equation that helped me predict the price of cryptocurrencies. And it was very simple. Here's the whole secret, okay? I found a way to measure how much hype cryptocurrency had. How many people were talking about it on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. And I put that into a number from 1 to 100. And then I used public websites to find out the market cap of the cryptocurrency, how much it was worth. And then I just divided the two numbers. So if there was a cryptocurrency that was very big, very popular, but people weren't really talking about it, my algorithm division told me it was going to go down in value at some point. Or if everyone was talking about something and it had a small market cap, then it would go up in value. So I started investing my own money in this, and it was working. And I felt like I had just discovered like Newtonian physics or something, right? I was like, this is huge. I'm going to be so rich. This is amazing. But this was like years before I ever started publishing content. I had no following, no audience, no rich friends, nothing. And so I thought, who's the biggest name in crypto? John McAfee. He had like 1 million Twitter followers at the time. And for better or worse, he was the biggest name in crypto. And so I thought, if I could just skip the line, right? Constraints equal creativity. If I could just partner with him and get him to buy into this vision that this works, then I could do something with this equation, build a community or sell access to it for a monthly fee or raise a fund and invest the fund's money into it. I got to get his attention. Problem is that he founded a security company. He's very private. He lives on a compound with bodyguards. So I started guessing his email address because I couldn't even find his email, which is pretty easy to do. I couldn't find his. So I'm trying like jm@mcafee.com, John at McAfee, John, and it was just bounce back. Finally, I had a notification. It was opened. I'm like, okay, I found it. He didn't respond, but I found it. So then I just start blowing him up. John, I'm really onto something here. Some guy in Texas, he doesn't know who I am. I'm nobody. I'm onto something. I think finally he responds, and I still have these screenshots. So this was January 24th, 2018. As long as it is a live demo, as I said before, I will not even look at history and will throw you out of house if you bring it up. Even if you have HD video showing God coming down from heaven and exclaiming that you are legit, I will still throw you out of the house. I want a live demo of your product that accurately projects the future. Otherwise, I will be seriously pissed off. Can you pull off a demo that predicts prices the following day, 48 hours from today, and 1 week from today? If you can do that, then please come. If you cannot, even with the greatest excuse God could provide, then do not come. Put it in the history books.
Oh my God, I want to use that line. David, the amount of times I'm going to say to you now for things you want to pitch me, even with the grace of God.
That's right.
I will never dance on the internet. Yeah, that is so good. Okay. What a fucking great email save, too.
And I was like, John, just give me an hour of your time in person. And he said, okay, I live in Lexington, Tennessee. Be at my house on, I think it was February 28th at 1:23 p.m. And if you're there, I'll give you an hour. And he said, I'll give you my address the morning of. Whoa. So I'm like, okay. So I fly to Tennessee, I get a rental car, email him that morning and say, I'm coming, John, what's your address? No response. I'm just going to Lexington. I don't know where he lives, right? There's like 40,000 people there. John, I'm coming to Lexington. Finally, at like 1 o'clock, or like 12 o'clock, he emails me his address. So I pull up to this house. It's like this old Southern style neighborhood. And there's one like Spanish style home with like a Hummer and like a Nissan Versa. And it's just like, if anyone lives here, it's John McAfee, right? All these crappy cars. And I knock on the door, and you know that scene in Home Alone when like they're about to leave to Paris and it's just bustling activity and everyone's running. It looked like that. There was an Australian film crew in there, multiple bodyguards with guns on their person, and then John and his wife, Janice. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, John, like, you just gave me your address. He's like, I don't know who you are. I'm like, Chris, I have that. He's like, oh, Janice, sorry, this guy thinks he can predict crypto. I don't believe him. I'm like, we're off to a great start. This is awesome. I'm glad I flew to Tennessee for this. So he's like, come in, we're going to the liquor store. I'm like, okay. And I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've never tasted alcohol. He's like the opposite of me, like in every way except entrepreneurship, right? So he's like, come in, sit down. So I sit down at this breakfast nook and everyone leaves as soon as I get there. And I'm like, what? Okay, this is weird. And I'm looking at this table and there's like hard drives and laptops. And I'm like, okay, this is like the most secure person in the world. There's probably $100 million worth of Bitcoin on that hard drive. And he doesn't know who I am. He's just, what is happening? Long story short, I end up hearing someone there. One of his bodyguards was there. He's like, oh, nice to meet you. He's very nice. He's like, tell me why you're here. And I spend like 30 minutes explaining how this works. And he's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm just like, great, this is just a total failure. And so then everyone comes back. John sits down. He's like, all right, Chris, you got an hour. So I open up my MacBook. I start talking and he's like, do you mind if this film crew films this? I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And so they start filming and I'm like halfway into my second sentence. And he's like, this is brilliant. Of course it works. Why wouldn't it work? It's just all hype. You're just dividing the hype by the market cap. What do you want from me? And I'm like, wow, this guy gets it. And so I'm like, let me give you a quarter of whatever it is that we build, and you tweet about me twice per week. I'll tell you what to tweet. We'll build something. And we shook on it. And I spent the day there eating Mexican food and hanging out with him. Wow. And then we started a business together.
And what ended up happening with the business?
Oh man, this was 2018, right at the start of crypto crashing from 20,000 to 3,000.
Oh yeah.
But we started a cryptocurrency that we gave out for free, and it reached a $30 million market cap. And we built a community with 70,000 people in it. We planned conferences, and we became friends over the course of 2 years until it all just kind of fizzled out and died.
Wow. So basically crypto crashed and that just killed the whole business.
Yeah. We were just swimming upstream we launched at like the worst possible time. Wow. I still have his voicemails saved on my phone.
That's wild.
Yeah. I can't delete them. I just can't.
Chris, John, McAfee. I'd like to chat for a little while, but to
It goes on and on. It's like 2 minutes. It's this idea to like start a business giving away free crypto to like strippers and mimes. Oh my God. And he's just rambling. And it's like, it's funny, but it's like I leave rambling voicemails like that. Not while on coke, but it's like we have the same entrepreneurial brain. His is just like plus coke, you know?
And strippers.
It's strippers and no morals. Yeah.
Wow, that is wild.
It's a good story.
What a story, though.
Yeah.
Okay. I think one of the other, there's kind of two other things I want to go with. One is you've obviously met a ton of everyday business owners who have gone from nothing to a couple $100,000, million, $2 million businesses. Everybody talks about the world's greatest founders, but what have you noticed just in your millionaire founders that you've met? What is different about them than everybody else?
Yeah. They have an insane bias for action. They just move fast. And not like to have first movers advantage just because that's just how they operate. They're impatient, right? Which could be seen as a flaw. It might be a flaw in their personal life. I don't know. But they're just insanely curious and impatient, and they pair those two things together. And sometimes it gets messy and things fail and things explode and bankruptcy. But over the long run, they just win. If they don't quit, they stay in the game. They just win.
Until you actually get in front of people who are moving like billionaires, like most of the billionaires I've met, I'm just like, oh my God, once you've made a decision, it's just tidal waves of movement. But I've struggled to try to get like a formula for how to explain if you are fast or not. Like if somebody said, all right, let's Chris, create for me the algorithm of, am I fast or am I not in my life? What would be the inputs? How could one tell if you really were a person who biased for action?
That's a good question. I've noticed like the best employees I've had work fast. And that's not something you talk about with employees. You talk about productivity but they just like, if I give two employees the same spreadsheet task, one of them is done 10 minutes, one does the same thing in 3 hours. Yeah. Right. And so I wish I had a formula of like how to train that. Maybe it can't be trained, but like, you know what? Maybe the commonality is you truly love what you do. Like I love what I do so much. I'm sitting at the MacBook typing away and I got to go to the bathroom. I'll run to the bathroom. And there's no deadline. No one's around. No one cares, right? It's just an email I'm writing or something and I'll run back. Yeah. Just because I genuinely love it and I want to be doing more of that. Going pee is not fun, right? I want to be doing that thing. And so that kind of forces me to be fast. If I'm researching a business or launching a business, if I do it faster, then I can do more of it in a compressed time period. So maybe you could make an analogy to like a hobby or something that you love. Like if you love going to the beach, you might speed on the way to the beach. You might spend more time there. You might be really creative or efficient at finding your way to the beach because you love it so much. Yeah. So just take that same principle and apply it to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. Do you have a way to screen employees for their speed?
The only way I've found is just 30-day trials for everyone. Yeah. And just saying on day one, statistically speaking, this isn't going to work out. Nothing against you. You seem awesome, or else we wouldn't even be doing this. I'm just looking at numbers. 30% chance this works out. So on day 30, let's put it on the calendar right now. We're going to have a talk. No hard feelings. It just probably won't work out. And if it's the right person, that conversation will put a chip on their shoulder, right? Because that chip can be very heavy. And some people get that. Some people just don't have that gene. It offends them and it drives them, like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and they don't work out. Some people are like, oh, okay, we'll see. I'll be in that 30%. And that's the guy or girl that I want.
Yeah, did somebody ever do that to you?
Oh, everything I've done is because of some stupid comment that someone made, or like it's chips on my shoulder. Like it's everything. I'm sure you could.
I'm the same way.
Could refer to
everybody says like, don't build angry. I'm like, wrong. There's no greater fuel than being a little pissed off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, and if you're religious, talk about like righteous fury, like that is a real thing. Yeah. And, you don't build the irrational thing that is a big business because you're like, I kind of don't care. Yeah. I just feel nothing. Yeah. And I like stumbled my way into this business. I just don't believe that. Yeah. I think you have to build it through like a force of will that is unreasonable. Yes. And that often comes from being really pissed that something doesn't already exist. Yeah. And so, I'm not the right person to talk to about like work-life balance or, being really reasonable on everything. I'm like, no, we got one life. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to say we made an impact.
And if you enjoy it, then right. Yeah. Like as much as I love my mom, I love you, Mom, but I didn't become successful because she believed in me so much, right? I'm glad that she did. I believe in my kids. I became successful because some stupid guy in college is like, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make it. And that guy probably doesn't even remember that I exist. You know, it's so silly.
Yeah.
But if you're able to harness it, then it's not silly.
Yeah. I used to I have like a little screen. I bet I still have the screenshot from when I was in finance. I was a partner at a finance company, and we had grown really fast, my division. And one of the other division heads basically didn't like that I was starting to bring a lot of this stuff online. It was pre-contrarian thinking, but I still thought that in the future, investing, a lot of it was going to be done through a version of online marketing. I was like, I think steak dinners as the only way of business that's not this generation.
Yeah.
And they disagreed. And so I remember he sent me an email. I think he was a little liquored up. It was like late at night. And the email said, I hope you gained more followers today because you've dumbed down our business.
Oh, wow.
And I remember being like...
You probably remember exactly where you were when you read that email.
Yeah, I remember where I was. I remember how I felt. And I remember being like, thanks, man. I needed that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so like, be really careful, I think, also with like the fuel you put into other people.
Yeah.
You know, because you might not realize enemies can be powerful too.
Yeah.
And so, I've learned that lesson also. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, you've done 75 businesses. You have to have gotten lied to, cheated, defrauded. Like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you in entrepreneurship?
Man, we could have 4 hours of conversation. Like, I call it like surface area for fraud, surface area for scams, trials, business partnership fallouts. I've had like 15 business partners. I could tell so many stories, but the worst one ever was I was building a business with a couple partners, and we had a $50 million opportunity on the table. We had a term sheet, and it was significantly better than we thought we would get. And this was life-changing money for all of us. And the two partners that I had kind of like ganged up, so to speak, had a meeting without me. And they said, you know what, like, there's really not enough equity to go around. I know our operating agreement kind of, we could just rip up that operating agreement, start a new company, get those same investors in our new company with just us. They're not going to care. They barely know Chris, right? It sucks, but like, honestly, this just makes the most sense. So they had that conversation. And then in my head, I was about to sign like the best deal of my life. I was way up here, right? And then I get a text. It's like, hey, meet me at Starbucks. And I just saw the text and nothing. I had no red flags. Like, there were no signs that this was about to happen, right? But I saw that text and I was like, I don't feel good about this. Why don't I feel good about this? Just something told me. Yeah. And like that feeling just came up and I'm like, okay. So I get in the truck and I drive across the street to Starbucks. I'm like, why aren't we meeting at the office? This was right across the street. I'm like, okay. So I get to Starbucks and I thought I was meeting with one of them. And the one I was closer with, I was meeting with both of them. And you could just see the looks on their faces. Yeah. And it was a longer conversation, but basically it was like, this sucks. This is wrong. We know this is wrong. We know this will ruin our friendship, but you're out. I'm like, you're out. This is done. We're doing this without you. We don't need you. And so I was just like, chip on shoulder, right? I was like, okay. That came later. In the moment, I was just like seeing red. Yeah. And just like driving home like this. And it was one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, honestly. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, lawyers got involved. That deal blew up. And my life has never been better ever since.
Yeah, it's such a lesson. I mean, one of the things that I feel like a lot of people are scared of doing entrepreneurship because they know the big, bad, scary thing will happen. Yeah. Like if you're in the game long enough, you're going to get hit. Yep. It's just the name of the game. But the crazy part is it doesn't kill you. Yeah. Like it's not going to kill you. Like entrepreneurship by itself, unless you fall off a roof, it's not going to kill you. It's going to suck. Yep. You're going to have mental scars, all the PTSD. But what I'm always surprised about? The people who defraud you and the people who scam you. Like we had this guy who like Chris and I, my husband Chris, were like really close to. Like met his kid and like been in his house and like knew the guy. And I thought we were buddies, but I was on the internet a little bit by then. This was like kind of at the beginning of me being on the internet. And the guy was formerly in secret agency world.
And so I knew, like, obviously those people understand manipulation, like they know how to come after you, but I just never would imagine being targeted. That was like a foreign thing to me.
Yeah.
But what happens in entrepreneurship is you do get targeted actually all the time, sometimes like big manipulation, sometimes little. And the one that stuck with me the most was not the most money. It was only a couple $100,000 that he defrauded us from, but it was that somebody could come after you with that intent. Somebody could steal from you so intensely, and the whole time you think you're friends.
Yeah.
And I think with business, what it really starts to teach you is that partnerships should be like few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
Or really set with a lot of expectations. And you've got to expect that you're going to have a breakup.
Yeah.
And then it'll be okay. And for people like that, it always comes back around.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's very rare for somebody to have a ton of business success over decades and decades and continuously fuck partners and people not know, right?
Yeah.
So one of the good parts is when you partner with people who are kind of success, you're like, okay, I know what I'm going to get into. One of the lessons that I've learned is like, be very careful with the unknown commodity. Like if you don't know them, if they haven't ever had any success, but they're the same age as you got to kind of be careful.
Yeah.
It's better to be the young up and comer, probably, or it's better to go with the established one. But I do think entrepreneurship can break your heart, because that was one of the few ones where I was like, you're just a commodity, not something else. But I think, thank you for sharing, because nobody really wants to share those stories. And everybody makes themselves out to be, it's only been great. Everything's only good.
It's tough.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, let's give people some tactics really quickly. So we've already talked about some ways to find businesses. But if you were going to have somebody leave here, you've given them 3 businesses you've given them 3 businesses you don't. If they right now are listening and they want to go find their next business to start, where would you look?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Where do you start? So I think that you have to put yourself in one of 2 buckets. Am I someone that already knows I love entrepreneurship? I've made my first dollar for myself. I've tasted it. I love it.
Yeah.
Or am I someone that loves the idea of entrepreneurship? I like how it sounds. I don't want to work. Who wants to work for someone, right? Some of those people end up trying it and they don't like it, right? So step 1 is figure out what bucket you're in, right? And then answer that question for yourself. Go gather things around your house that are just sitting around, sell them on Facebook Marketplace, see how it feels. Is the hassle of going back and forth with someone or meeting someone to sell a $50 dresser, is it not worth it for you? Or does it seem not worth it until you make that $50 and you're like, oh, that feels good. I did that myself, right? So start there, I would say.
Yeah. Now, what about for the person that is already in a job? So they're already working. They kind of maybe like what they do, but they're not young and hungry necessarily. They're in their career. Is there somewhere you tell people to start where it's slightly more advanced?
Yeah.
Is there a 202 level to start, or does everybody have to start at 101 Facebook Marketplace?
Yeah. You familiar with the Ikigai principle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those that aren't, it's just a Venn diagram. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what could you charge for? Okay, start there. So if you work in dentistry, right? You know dentistry better than most people you know. So maybe you should start thinking of ideas that are tangential to that. Maybe you have a vendor that seems to be crushing it and you could copy what they're doing. Maybe you could start maybe you manage your dentist Facebook ads account and you could start an ad agency for dentists, right? So start what you enjoy and what you know and what is in kind of your zone of genius and go from there. Where I see people going wrong is they're a lawyer and then they go try to start a pressure washing business. And they're like, I don't even like this at my house. What am I doing? And that could turn them off from entrepreneurship just because they chose the wrong thing. They might actually love the feeling of entrepreneurship, right? So definitely start with what you know and then test it. Like Jeff Bezos talks about the regret minimization framework, right? People don't regret things that they do typically. Right? We regret things that we didn't do, like the jump that we didn't take. And so that's one thing that I have. I have call it underlying FOMO. If I have a business idea that's just ruminating, I've got to get it out. Yeah. And if it fails, great, because now I know. Because I don't want there to have been an idea from 3 years ago that could have been $1 billion idea. So you're just, every year that you get older, right? The chance of you leaving those golden handcuffs just goes down and down and down. And the worst feeling is just being 40, 50, 60, 80 years old and looking back like, I should have done that. Like that job kind of sucked the whole time. Why didn't I at least try it? Like people don't have to quit. Under almost, like there's very few exceptions where you have to quit your job to start a business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the part that's really interesting on that too is like, I think most people really overestimate what happens. I'm sorry, people really underestimate what happens after you start. Like the hard thing is the start.
Yeah.
The really hard thing, because most people just will never kickstart their way. Like, again, to go to my dad, he was in real estate forever and never bought a property. I mean, I'm talking like 30 or 40 years because he was super risk averse.
Yeah.
And so he's like, no, I'm a deal maker. I like to get the deals. I'm like, yeah, what if you're sick?
Yeah.
You have to have something else that can pay you. And so it's like, just kind of get started.
Yeah.
And then you can see what happens. What about, I like this framework of like minimizing regret. Do you also do you have you have 452 businesses, like you've done like 75 businesses to date. Do you think you have ADD, ADHD or something? Do you have a hard time sticking with one thing for an extended period of time?
I am diagnosed ADHD. Definitely have that. And it used to stress me out. I used to say, Chris, shiny object syndrome, stop. Nope, this is working. I went and got my MBA just to like fight that, right? And I used to think focus is like focusing on one business. And maybe for some people that is. To me, the focus that's important is focusing on your superpower. Okay. And where I went wrong was trying to do payroll and trying to do a little bit of marketing and hiring and operations. I'm terrible at operations, right? I forget payroll sometimes. That's really bad. That's really bad when you miss payroll. All right, let me tell you. But I'm really good at marketing and ideation and executing on ideas fast. So now I just focus on that. And if that's across 10 different businesses or one, it makes no difference because I'm going to win either way.
I love that because these days people all tell you, well, hey, you should just do this one thing. You know, if instead you focused on one business, how much richer would you be? It's like, I don't know, maybe, but maybe I'd have less fun.
Yeah.
And so do we always have to optimize for return, or could we optimize for a little fun plus return?
Yeah.
So I think for anybody out there who's, got a little ADD, gets distracted kind of easy, that doesn't mean that you can't be an entrepreneur. It might just mean your path looks different.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me ask that. It's probably inappropriate. What other
No,
medical diagnoses do you have that you'd like to discuss today? Anything else? Well, you said two things that I think a lot of people feel like you can't have as an entrepreneur. You're like, I'm an introvert. I actually don't like doing this. And second, you're like, I'm ADHD. I get distracted. And yet you can still be a CEO, still be a content creator, and still be pretty wildly successful. Is there why could a person listening right now not do this? What's the anti-entrepreneur? You will never make it if you have these characteristics.
Ego, pride. You don't want to look stupid in front of your friends that aren't even thinking about you. You like, it could just be like you really just don't want it that bad. You just like the idea of entrepreneurship, but you try like getting your hands dirty a little bit, and it's like, I just want a paycheck. And that's awesome. I would love to report to someone a lot of times.
Me too.
I would love to just like, tell me what to do, right? So I think if you are humble and you do really want it, like, I can't think of really any excuses why you can't do it. Because like even working hard, you don't have to have a work ethic. If you genuinely enjoy it, it doesn't feel like work. Right? Like some people say people are inherently lazy. I think people need to work. I think we get fulfillment from work. Most people just haven't found the work that they love yet. So it means you have to keep trying things until you do, right? Like after starting 75 businesses, I know exactly what I like and what I don't like. But had I just stayed in one the whole time, I might not know. So I just follow the energy. If I'm doing a task that gives me energy, I just do more of that. And I think it's really hard to go wrong if you do that. You're familiar with product market fit, right? It's just like the concept that your product or service, there is a big market for it, and you know it's there because you're just like staying up all night fulfilling orders. Like there's so much demand for this. Some people think you have to have that. You don't usually have it. I've experienced like 2 or 3 times. But when I have a product or service or business that has product market fit, I'm not out there getting distracted. I don't have time. There's a selection bias, right? So if I'm distracted by another shiny object, that's a signal to me that there's something worth getting distracted over because this thing is expensive as far as opportunity cost is concerned. So if my energy is directed over here, then I should pay attention to that, right?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's a very fair point too. I also think like most people, it's like, do you only want to do what you want to do, or do you want to do what's required? If you only want to do what you want to do at all times,
Yeah.
then you won't make it.
Yeah.
Now you can only do what you want to do, broad picture, but like day to day, you're going to have to do some bullshit.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do that, I really think you can be an entrepreneur. It's just like, it is that mixture of like, can I become obsessed with a thing? Then can I do some stuff I don't want to do? Can I do it past a point that is reasonable for most other people? And can I continue to move forward?
Yeah.
In your religion, do you have to do like door knocking and selling?
We did during our mission for 2 years. Yeah.
So you kind of learned hard, difficult, salesy
yeah.
things. How old were you then?
19 in Hungary, Eastern Europe.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Do you speak Hungarian?
Yeah, a little bit. I still got some left.
Wow, what do you got?
Jó napot kívánok.
That sounded great.
Thank you.
What'd you say?
I just put a little deeper voice on and no one can tell the difference. I just said, how are you? Hello, how are you?
Wild.
Yeah.
And so do you think a lot of your entrepreneurial chops come from doing hard things like that really young?
Oh, 100%. I was like, in high school, you know, I had a single mom. She was a waitress, and I had bad grades. I was not motivated. I was not driven. I was not valedictorian, 3.0 GPA, stupid stuff on the weekends. But after knocking doors in Eastern Europe in a foreign language for 2 years, and I added up how many times I got rejected, loosely, because we would knock on doors all day, every day. And so if you add that up, like X doors per day, it's like 24,000 times. Rejected to my face. Okay. This isn't like a mean email. Like, I don't want what you're selling me. When you do that for 2 years and you come home, I just remember sitting in my room after coming home thinking like, I can freaking do anything. Like, and I will. Like, this is America. I can do whatever I want, because I met a lot of really smart, kind, talented people over there that had no opportunity. They could not get ahead if they wanted to. And I was like, I can do whatever I want here compared to Hungary. And so I've just been trying to do that ever since.
Did you convert anybody with 24,000 no's?
11.
Whoa.
Yeah. So how's that
Which also
conversion
seems
rate?
like a lot. Like, if you believe you're saving souls, 11
Yeah.
is a lot. That's more than me. But that's a tough ratio.
It's tough.
So
Yeah.
do you think, like, will you make your kids do the same thing, or ask your kids if they want to do the same
We
thing?
encourage them to.
Yeah.
But I can't really force them to do anything, you know,
Yeah.
especially once they're 18.
You just model it.
Yeah. But the thing is about those 11 people is I learned after a while, like, it was all for me. Like, it sounds selfish, but I served that mission. I thought I was serving others, and that became a byproduct of what I was doing. Really, I was served the most in serving them.
Yeah, I get that.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. It's my favorite reason for why we host workshops here. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense
Yeah.
to do, like, with the scale that we have, to bring 100 people in here, teach them about business, but we've been doing it for the past 5 years. Like, why would you do such a thing? Because it's actually really selfish.
Yeah.
Like, when you meet the people at the end, and in the beginning, and I remember one of the guys, I won't say his name, but he, like, have you ever looked at an entrepreneur? You can tell they're going through it. Like, when you are with a CEO buddy and they're having a tough time in the business, I think it's often physical. Like,
Yeah.
you can literally see it on their face.
Yeah.
And so he had sort of these, like, I guess it's shingles, like hives, sort of. And I was like, what's going on with you, man? And it was because he had a, what is that called? Where you go and check a house to see what it's worth.
Oh, appraiser?
Yeah, geez.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was a home appraiser. And by the end of 2 days, we kind of figured out that he was really selling to the low end of the market. He was taking everybody. So he was it was your 3PL problem. No profit, too many clients, lots could go wrong. And they really didn't value his service very much. So it was always a price negotiation, right? So, but by the end, I'm like, are you good at this? And he's like, yeah, we're very good at it. I'm like, why don't you just put like luxury home appraisal, just like optimize for SEO on that. You're a luxury appraisal company now. Did it. He's like, oh my God, I doubled my business.
Wow.
Plus I have half the number of clients, and he started looking healthy. Now that is awesome for him. I'm stoked about that. But like, I was so excited. I'm like, look
Yeah.
at the help that I could give this dude
Yeah.
doing it. And I think people don't realize that entrepreneurship can really be that.
Oh, it's
so I
amazing.
think it's a real service what you do, because now you're talking to, how many people are following you on the internet now with all the sauce you're given?
I mean, I don't even track it, but like 3.62 million. Something like
barely
that.
know.
I don't track it.
And where do you like people to follow the most? I like your Instagram
Yeah.
and your Twitter. I try to stay off X as much as possible, actually, because it can be a cesspool. But you have great
X
Yep.
and Instagram. Do you
Yeah.
want to tell them where to find you?
Yeah, my podcast, really. The Kerner Office, spelled like my last name.
Yeah, well, spell it because they're never going to get that.
Koerner.
There you
or
go.
tkopod.com.
I actually thought it was Corner up until this very moment.
Well, I
The
don't do
Corner
myself any
Office
favors. I
is
know.
really, so it's the Kerner Office because it looks like
but
Corner.
I'll accept both of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on here. Thank you for all the secrets that you share about entrepreneurs. And I think this episode is going to be really useful for multiple people out there who are stuck in their own way and they might just break through. So if you give them a follow all across the interwebs. And if you guys start a business or if you grow one because of this, tell us. We will get you something special in the comments. Come back. We will patrol this for the next couple months. And if something cool happens, we'll make sure we give away some merch to you. Maybe we'll even get an original Buc-ee's, something that Chris did
Some beaver nuggets.
simultaneously. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.